All right. Okay, Catherine, take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Rossmell. I'm an attorney with Lewis, Longman & Walker. And on behalf of all your panelists, thank you for being here today, whether you're virtually or in person there with Carlin. We are really glad to have you here. We're also really excited about today's panel because when we submitted our proposals all last year, we didn't quite realize how timely it was going to be working effectively out of the office and online. So we're all really hopeful that you'll get some good information that will help you out moving forward. Logistically today, this panel is a little bit split in terms of there are some of you in person and there are some of you online. So we're gonna handle the questions a little bit differently. If you have a question and you're online, please go ahead and put it in the question and answer box that'll be at the bottom of your Zoom panel. We'll kind of collect those and deal with those at the end of each individual presentation. And then at the end of each block of presentations, there'll be a question and answer session. If you are in the room with Carlin and you're not going to be logged in, you can get your question to Carlin for her to ask somehow if you want to write it down, if you want to go talk to her at the end, but those questions can be addressed all at the end. This panel is going to be split into two separate parts. The first part of the panel is going to be Tim Perry, Joe Yulo, and myself, and we're going to be talking about ethics and professionalism in technology and how those kind of interplay when we're in and out of the office and in really a modern workspace, wherever that is. After that, we're going to have about a 15-minute question and answer session. Then we're going to take a 20-minute break for everyone to get up and stretch their legs. And when we come back, Carlin Kowalski and her crew are going to take over, and they're going to be explaining about how to use online agency resources effectively. And it's from people who work at the agency, so hopefully they'll be able to give you some insider tips that you don't already know. For the end of our panel and for most of Carlin's panel, there's an opportunity for you guys to kind of be interactive and follow along. So to the extent you can watch this on one device and have another device available to you to experiment around with, that might be useful. It's certainly not required, but if it's something you're interested in, go ahead and think about that. And with that, I think I'm about done here. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. If you have any questions, like we said, please use the question and answer feature. And we're going to do our best to get you out of here right on time today. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Tim Perry.
Hi, everyone out there, virtually and in person there in Marco Island. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but what I did do was I still wore my nice casual shirt, just like I'd be there in person. I've got my good Marco Island shirt going, so I can be there at least in state of mind. Okay, let me pull up my presentation for you guys. Okay. Catherine, can you see my presentation okay?
I can.
All right. And what we're looking at, though, are you going to put it on slide view?
Can you see it now?
It's not on slide view yet, Tim. It's still on the normal screen for us.
Okay, interesting. All right. So my slide view. Still on the normal screen?
Still is. Try hit enable editing. That was a holdup for my computer the other day. Once I hit that, it would let me now try it and see if it works. There you go.
All right. Okay, so my presentation is going to be a little bit more on the traditional end of the ethics for the environmental professional. And my name is Timothy Perry. I'm an attorney with Ortel, Fernandez, Bryan & Atkinson in Tallahassee, Florida. I do environmental land use law, and I practice statewide throughout Florida, mostly working with DEP, the water management districts, the Corps, and the delegated agencies. I'm the past president of the Florida Association of Environmental Professionals, and I'm also the current president of the Tallahassee Area Association of Environmental Professionals and a board member of the National Association of Environmental Professionals. Okay, so what is the purpose of kind of a professional code of ethics? Well, there's a number of reasons why different professions have a code of ethics. One is to serve as a collective recognition by the members of the professional organization and its responsibilities, what the organization stands for. It sets a tenor for the organization and for its members. It helps to create an environment in which ethical behavior is the norm for the members. It serves as an educational tool for the members, and as well as a guide and reminder on how to act in specific situations. It also sets a standard for professionals for how they do their work. And it indicates to others outside the profession that the profession is seriously concerned with responsible professional conduct. Now, my presentation is mostly going to be focused on the rules related to attorney ethics as well as engineers ethics. But these principles that are embodied in both of these sets of rules are really applicable to all types of environmental professionals. And I think that whether you're a wetland scientist or you're a geologist or you're a toxicologist or whatever you may be, you can take these rules and principles and guidelines and these codes and really use them to help serve your work as an environmental professional. And it's the benefits of following these guidelines is, obviously professionally as an attorney or an engineer, you're required to do so. But it's also beneficial for you to do so because it keeps your work product, it keeps the standard of your work at a very high level and really sets you apart as an environmental professional. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I pulled up here is the attorney's creed. And the creed basically sets the tone for all of the professional conduct rules. Now, attorneys and engineers have a creed. And there are a few things that I just want to highlight in the creed that I think is really kind of helpful for you to keep in mind, just the way you act. This is something that I personally go over every single year of my practice. And it's a good reminder of, even if you're not going over all the rules, what is the spirit and the tenor of what how I'm supposed to act as an attorney or an engineer or an environmental professional. And I think the first one, it starts off with talking about reverence for the law, the judicial system, and the legal profession, and trying in your professional and private life to uphold the dignity and esteem of each. It also talks about your professional devotion to both public service and to the public good. And by strictly adhering to the spirit as well as the letter of the profession's code of ethics, then that will allow you to be guided by a fundamental sense of honor, integrity, and fair play. It talks about not knowingly misstating, distorting, or exaggerating facts or opinions, or allowing your silence or inaction to mislead anyone. And it also talks about, and I think this is a very important one, conducting yourself in a way to assure the just, speedy, and inexpensive determination of every action and resolution of every controversy. And when dealing with not just other attorneys, but other members of the public, your own clients, people you're opposing, the judicial system, acting at all times with dignity, decency, and courtesy. Respecting the time and commitments of others, which is also part of being courteous, and being diligent and punctual in communicating with others and in fulfilling commitments. And that's something that not only really should be applied to your clients, which is a good thing to do, always to be punctual and follow up with your clients, but it's also good with others that you're dealing with as well. It's not fair if you're dealing with a third party on a project and they're asking you for something, to not only not get back with them in a timely manner, but not even telling them when you're going to get back to them. So that's another good one that I think is in the creed that is not as much in the rules with respect to third parties, but I think is a good one to follow. And finally, it talks about exercising independent judgment and not being governed by clients' ill will or deceit. And this is a particularly important one, when thinking of yourself as an environmental professional. I mean, you're a professional person. Your clients are coming to you because of your professional expertise, and the best way that you can serve them is by exercising your own independent judgment and giving them your honest, fair thoughts, even if that may be something that they disagree with. Okay, so let's go over the Engineer's Creed. The Engineer's Creed has a lot of similar things in there, and I think it's really good for engineers or geologists or wetland scientists to know about. And this was adopted by the National Society of Professional Engineers back in 1954. And it says, as a professional engineer, I dedicate my professional knowledge and skill to the advancement and betterment of human welfare. I pledge to give the utmost of performance, to participate in none but honest enterprise, to live and work according to the laws of man and the highest standards of professional conduct, to place service before profit, the honor and standing of the profession before personal advantage, and the public welfare above all other considerations. I think that that's a good, short, quick summary of how best to act. Okay, let's talk about some of the requirements in the attorneys and engineers rules specifically. So I'm going to start off talking about the conflict of interest provisions in both the attorneys and the engineers rules. So the first rule I want to talk about is Rule 4.17. This relates to conflict of interest with current clients. And what it talks about is when a lawyer must not represent a client if the representation of one client will be directly adverse to another client, or there's a substantial risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibilities to another client, a former client, or a third person, or by a personal interest of the lawyer. Now, even if there's a conflict of interest, and especially if there is one, if you're going to represent that client, it's very important to get informed consent from any prospective clients and also from your current clients. A lawyer may represent a client if the lawyer reasonably believes that the lawyer will be able to provide competent and diligent representation to each affected client. The representation is not prohibited by law, and the representation does not involve the assertion of a positive position adverse to another client when the lawyer represents both clients. Now, when the client is a former client, Rule 4.1.9 of the attorney's professional rules apply. And it says a lawyer who has formerly represented a client in a matter must not afterwards represent another person in the same or a substantially related matter in which that person's interests are materially adverse to the interests of the former client unless the former client gives informed consent. And this rule is imputed to all lawyers in a firm. Rule 4-1.11 is a special conflict of interest rule that applies to former and current government officers and employees. This rule applies when a public officer or employee, an employee of a government agency, leaves and goes to work in private practice. A lawyer who has formerly served as a public officer or employee of the government is subject to the conflict of interest rule and shall not otherwise represent a client in connection with the matter in which the lawyer participated personally and substantially as a public officer or employee, unless the appropriate government agency gives its informed consent, confirmed in writing, to the representation. So similar to attorneys in private practice, an attorney coming from government practice also has to get conflict of interest waivers. So the second part of the rule deals with representation by another member of the firm. So when a lawyer is disqualified, when a government lawyer coming to a firm, for example, or that has worked at a firm, is now working in a firm and had previously worked on a matter in private practice, this rule applies for the members of the firm other than the former government lawyer. And it says when a lawyer is disqualified from representation under subdivision A, no lawyer in the firm with which that lawyer is associated may knowingly undertake or continue representation in such a matter unless the disqualified lawyer, which is the former government lawyer, is timely screened from any participation in the matter and is directly apportioned no part of the fee therefrom, and written notice is promptly given to the appropriate government agency to enable it to ascertain compliance with the provisions of this rule. Also, that there are limits on a government public officer or employee that is currently employed by the government, but was in private practice previously. And in that situation, the lawyer's also subject to the conflict of interest provisions and shall not otherwise represent a client in connection with a matter in which the lawyer participated personally and substantially as a public officer or employee, unless the appropriate government agency gives its informed consent. Okay, so let's talk about the conflict of interest provisions under the engineer's rules. Rule 61G 15-19.001 has the grounds for disciplinary proceedings for engineers. And subsection 6 talks about professional misconduct by engineers. And a professional engineer shall not commit misconduct by becoming involved in a conflict of interest with an employer or client without the knowledge and approval of the client or employer. But if unavoidable, a professional engineer shall immediately take the following actions. Disclose in writing to his employer or client the full circumstances as to a possible conflict of interest. Assure in writing that the conflict will in no manner influence the professional engineer's judgment or the quality of his services to his employer or client, and properly inform his client or employer in writing of any business association, interest, or circumstances which may be influencing his judgment or the quality of his services to his client or employer. Now, there are pretty substantial fines for violating the conflict of interest provision if you're an engineer. For the first violation, it could be anything from a reprimand and a $1,000 fine and 2 years probation, all the way up to revocation and a $5,000 fine. Second and subsequent violations can result in a 1-year suspension from the practice of engineering, 2 years probation, and a $5,000 fine to revocation. Okay, let's talk about another topic. This topic goes to the competence of both attorneys and engineers to practice. Rule 4-1.1 of the Attorney's Rules of Professional Conduct says that a lawyer shall provide competent representation to a client. Competent representation requires the legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation reasonably necessary for the representation. And this rule doesn't strictly prohibit somebody from taking on a matter that they haven't worked on previously. But if you have experience working on a specific type of matter, like let's say you're an environmental attorney and you do a lot of due diligence real estate transactions, then obviously you would have through your skill and experience, the knowledge and preparation reasonably necessary for the representation. Now, if you haven't worked on a matter before, this rule requires you to acquire that competence and good faith before you work on the matter for the client. So, you know, by undertaking the necessary review of the related rules and statutes, you know, taking any type of CLE courses that you would need to educate yourself to be able to acquire the knowledge and the skill to represent a client competently. Similarly, the engineering rules also have a competency requirement. It says that a professional engineer shall not commit misconduct in the practice of engineering, which shall include performing an engineering assignment when not qualified by training or experience in the practice area involved, and affixing a signature or seal to any engineering plan or document in a subject matter over which a professional engineer lacks competence because of inadequate training or experience. Okay, the next topic I want to talk about is confidentiality. So both the attorney's rules and the engineering rules have provisions related to confidentiality and discretion with client information. Rule 4-1.6, confidentiality of information, provides that consent is required to reveal information of a client. And a lawyer must not reveal information relating to representation of a client unless one of the specific exceptions applies and the client gives an informed consent. So subsection B talks about when a lawyer must reveal information. And a lawyer must reveal such information to the extent the lawyer reasonably believes necessary to prevent a client from committing a crime or to prevent a death or substantial bodily harm to another. Subsection C talks about when a lawyer may reveal information. A lawyer may reveal such information to the extent the lawyer reasonably believes necessary to serve the client's interests unless it is information the client specifically requires not to be disclosed. In non-adjudicative proceedings, like a legislative body or an administrative agency, when you're going to meet with an agency, a lawyer representing a client before one of those bodies shall disclose that the appearance is in a representative capacity and shall conform to the professional rules. The Florida Bar's Rules of Professional Conduct also have a candor toward the tribunal section that also deals with confidentiality of client information. I would point out that 4-3.3, Section A, talks about false evidence and the duty to disclose. A lawyer shall not knowingly make a false statement of fact or law to a tribunal or fail to correct a false statement of material fact or law previously made to the tribunal by the lawyer. Fail to disclose a material fact to a tribunal when disclosure is necessary to avoid assisting a criminal or fraudulent act by the client. Fail to disclose to the tribunal legal authority in the controlling jurisdiction known to the lawyer to be directly adverse to the position of the client and not disclosed by opposing counsel, or offer evidence that the lawyer knows to be false. The duties stated in that rule continue beyond the conclusion of the proceeding and apply even if compliance requires disclosure of information otherwise protected by Rule 4-1.6. There's also a rule on fairness to opposing party and counsel that deals with a lawyer's confidentiality requirements when dealing with client matters. Rule 4-3.4 says that a lawyer must not unlawfully obstruct another party's access to evidence or otherwise unlawfully alter, destroy, or conceal a document or other material that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know is relevant to a pending or reasonably foreseeable proceeding, nor counsel or assist any other person to do such an act. A lawyer must not also fabricate evidence, counsel, or assist a witness to testify falsely, or offer an inducement to a witness. Let's talk about the confidentiality provisions related to engineers. Rule 61G 15-19.001, subsection 6, talks about that a professional engineer shall not commit misconduct in the practice of engineering, which shall include revealing facts, data, or information obtained in a professional capacity without the prior consent of the professional engineer's client or employer, except as authorized or required by law. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the role of an attorney and an engineer as a counselor to the client. One of the most important things that you can do as an environmental professional is to bring your professional expertise to any matter that you're working on and advising the client as an advisor and not just as an advocate. Rule 4-2.1 in the Florida Bar's Rules of Professional Conduct discuss that in representing a client, a lawyer shall exercise independent professional judgment and render candid advice. In rendering advice, a lawyer may refer not only to law, but to other considerations such as moral, economic, social, and political factors that may be relevant to the client's situation. This to me is one of the most important rules in the rules of professional conduct. Clients, especially when you're a lawyer, clients expect you to be a very strong advocate to them, and all lawyers are zealous advocates in the courtroom. But it's very important that when you're talking to your client directly, and you're just dealing with them on a confidential basis, that you also be an impartial advisor to them, that you advise them of all of the potential outcomes and of all the potential factors that could potentially affect their case. Not just what the law says on how the case will turn out, but also have them think about, how will this look to them, how third parties view this case if we prevail, even if we make these arguments, even if we're likely to make these arguments. Are there other options that we can take that will give an effective outcome that may have less social or political fallout? The engineering rules also have a counselor provision in them. It says, a professional engineer shall not commit misconduct in the practice of engineering, which shall include, but not be limited to, if your engineering judgment is overruled by an unqualified lay authority with the results that the public health and safety is threatened, failure by a professional engineer to inform his employer, responsible supervision, and the responsible public authority of the possible circumstances. So this rule overlays a requirement for every engineer to use their best engineering judgment and to not have that engineering judgment overruled by an unqualified layperson. And if your client is not qualified to make that engineering judgment and they want you to do something different, then you have an obligation to inform your employer about that. Okay, I'll hold my questions until later, but I think next up is Joe Yulo.
Joe, you're on mute if you are about to get started.
Hey, there I am. Everybody see me okay?
We can see you and we can hear you, Joe.
You hear me?
And
Awesome.
just so you know, there's about 5 or 6 of us here in the room, and we're all paying attention.
Awesome. So can everyone hear me okay in the room? I can't see you, but I'm sure that you're smiling
Yes.
and happy.
Yeah, everybody.
Please pay attention.
Wake up.
So here we have, I thank you very much for attending virtually and attending actually today. My name is Joe Yulo. I'm an environmental lawyer here in Florida. I'm barred in all of the jurisdictions as far as the federal courts. And I primarily practice probably in the northern part of the state because I'm based in Tallahassee. However, my practice does span across the whole state. I've got about a little over 25 years of total environmental experience. I am a professional engineer in Florida, and for my first 10 years of my professional life when I got to Florida in the early 90s, I practiced engineering in Florida, became a PE, and started my professional career in that regard. I think a lot of you might know me. I had some time as the director of the Division of Waste Management with Florida Department of Environmental Protection between 2015 and 2018. And it was a really enjoyable time and a great opportunity to serve the state and understand environmental regulations from a different perspective. And then more probably pertinent to this panel, I'm also serving as the vice chair for the Second Judicial Circuit Grievance Committee for the Florida Bar right now. And I have been on the Grievance Committee since 2016. So that gives me a good opportunity to see for the lawyers when complaints actually rise to the level where a grievance is filed, probable cause is being determined and fully evaluated. I did leave the Department of Environmental Protection in 2018, and I restarted my practice with Stearns Weaver Miller right there in the fall of 2018. So thank you very much for having us today. When Catherine and I and Tim, we all first started talking about this panel, I was in the comfort of my office. The world was a much different place. And as Catherine said, we talked about this panel as a sleepy early bird panel just to warm people up and get people started. And we had no idea when we were having that conversation in January that the world was going to turn on its head, and that when we gave the presentation, we wouldn't be in Marco. We would be sitting in our homes. I would be in my basement, and I would be in my basement for probably day number 130 of a pandemic isolationist response. So I think it's amazing, and that the practice of law and our overall professional practice just keep continuing on. And so I think that's really some of the backdrop of this presentation, and really kind of goes to the value of some of the things that we'll talk about today. Try to go to, there we go. Next slide. So one thing that we did when we put together this presentation was we made certain efforts to make sure that we did not duplicate we did not duplicate the presentations. So although I'm going to be discussing attorney-client privilege under Rule 4-1.6, and Tim talked about it too, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective. And one thing that's interesting about it is I think my perspective comes from, where are you now? What are you doing now? How has that rule shifted? Many of the Florida bar rules really are written in a way that was set up for physical files, physical office space, and the like. They can be converted and changed to a virtual office space in a virtual world, but you have to really be able to think through the purpose of the rule and what you're trying to achieve with the rule. The other things that I'm going to speak about, in addition to the confidentiality issue, is planning for the interruption in service of your practice and protecting yourself and your data. And also, the last thing I'll talk about is the right to inventory rule, which is under Rule 1-3.8 of the Florida Bar Rules. So in those three topics are all really about contingency planning. For engineers in the room, we all like contingencies, we like safety factors. This is really looking at contingency factors to make sure that we have continuous service for our clients. And as we go through, even though it's really geared towards the practicing attorneys, I want to let you know that I am going to try to touch on areas where the engineers can definitely, and the engineers and scientists can definitely be, take some information and probably take it back and have it help them in their practices too. So let's talk about working in a new environment. Well, so in Veterans Day of last year, this was my view, and this is me watching the Veterans Day parade from my office. Downtown Tallahassee, you might recognize Monroe Street, you might recognize across the way is the Hopping Green and Sam's building, but this is my view in my office. Now, current day, I have much less distractions. As you can see, the plain brick wall that sits outside of the window in my basement, it changes incredibly as the day and the time and the sun passes over it, with different reflections of red and orange and hues coming off of the bricks. It's really beautiful. But that is what I would consider to be before COVID and current day. So BC takes on an entirely different meaning in this world. What else do we have going on today? Well, Zoom is now much of a verb as it is a noun, and we're looking every day to try to minimize paper and practice electronic business. Electronic business has a brand new relevance in everything we do. My transition to the home office happened over a weekend, and I thought maybe I had enough information and work here to last 2, 3, maybe 4 days. As time went on, I would either print things I needed to print, or I would PDF things I needed to PDF, and then I would create an inventory. So in a way, this whole incident has forced me to convert to more of an electronic-based practice. But where this was before was that there were a lot of resources online, and for many of us, and for me personally, I always thought, well, that's going to be really for the solo practitioners that don't have the structure of a law firm and don't have all of the other things that you have that you grow accustomed to when you have a law firm. But what has happened, and what I've heard from many of the practitioners, is that many of these tools that have been used by many for a while are now becoming more and more useful. The American Bar Association has an entire page dedicated to Blueprint, ABA Blueprint. And they have pulled all the resources together in one place. So anything you want to find, from electronic signing to electronic document management, other case management tools, it's all in one place. So if you're at home and you're trying to increase your efficiency, and you're trying to make sure that maybe you want to figure out a better way to sign your documents remotely, maybe you want to figure out a better way to do your engagement letters, however you want to do it, look around for some of these resources. And another thing, if you need to, contact Florida Bar and also ask them. So we'll move on and we'll talk a little bit about client confidentiality. So Rule 4-1.6 talks about maintaining the confidentiality of your client's information. Tim stated the rule well. It's really geared towards maintaining the confidentiality of your client. And one of the purposes of that is so that they can properly convey all of their information about their case to their attorneys with the comfort of knowing that they could give full disclosure without fear. And it enables the attorney to actually be able to understand, act, and see exactly where the client's coming from in the process. When we take in information and then we're giving advice, those periods of time involve client confidential transfers of information. When we first started talking about this, I had this great idea. We were talking about a skit. If many of you've seen some of my presentations, I like doing skits. I like doing different things. To be honest, this platform is a little bit difficult for me, so I'm probably just going to go straight and narrow with this presentation, so I apologize if it bores you to tears. But my skit would have really involved a busy airport or a crowded conference. And our thoughts of trying to be efficient and get work done, but at times, what happens is we miss out on maybe not protecting all of our level of confidences that we need to protect. A couple of quick stories that I'll share with you. One time in a busy airport, waiting for a flight, I sat down, I thought I was in a remote area. I began just doing general things, nothing major. And all of a sudden I started getting texts from a random old friend. Random old friend asked me how I'm doing. Been a long time since we've chatted. How are you? What's going on? And then about 2 or 3 texts into it, he says, that color blue looks good on you. And I turned around, he was right behind me. You never know who's right behind you and who is around you. And you don't, and even if you can see the people, you don't know who they are or where they're all from. Another real interesting thought came to me. This was years ago in between sessions at one of the summer permitting schools. An attorney and a consultant were talking about a site. I was in the corner of the room taking notes, preparing for a presentation. I don't know if they noticed I was in the room or not, but they began talking about a site in a discharge location. And they were saying, yeah, that's probably where the discharge came from. And then the comment was made, well, what's been reported? Well, the reported discharge is from the tank. Well, what does the state think? Well, I don't think the state knows about that other discharge. Oh, okay. Well, we'll need to keep that in mind. So later, this was years before I became the Director of Division of Waste Management. Later, that attorney and that consultant came before me in a discharge case. I don't know if it was the same case or not, but sure as heck, I went, well, wait a minute. And I looked at the fact pattern to see, is this the case that I remember hearing about? Either way, we all need to be very sensitive with all of our information that we're having when we're dealing with client information. Special circumstances may warrant special precautions. It's a sliding scale when you're talking about more protections as the sensitivity increases. We need to be sensitive to these things in our homes because we want to convey to our clients that their information is confidential and sensitive. We need to constantly be aware of that. So in this day of COVID-19, scammers are seizing the moment. They know where we're going. When I ask you, what are the numbers today in Florida? Everybody pretty much knows, well, he's talking about the number of COVID cases that are being detected in the state. And how does everybody go about getting to it? A lot of people have a one go-to source. Maybe it's a Johns Hopkins map. Maybe it's your local TV station. Well, early in the pandemic, some scammers actually created a counterfeit Johns Hopkins map. And as you can see here, the Sumter County Sheriff's Department came across and said, visiting the website infects the user with the Azar-Rolt Trojan and information stealing program that could compromise sensitive data in your computer systems. We need to be fully aware of these possible breaches of our security. We need to be, whenever we get any information regarding pandemic, anything that's commonplace, common day nomenclature, we need to look at it twice. Do not think before you click. And make sure at all times that your antivirus is up to date. The Florida Bar references the Consumer Financial Protection Board, as a board that's doing certain things, and both the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Finance Protection Board have information about, have good information that could help you and show you what are some things to watch out for with scammers with the virus. With regards to Twitter, that's got its own issues that have just been coming to light over the last couple of weeks, and you guys are probably aware of that. So, how do we protect ourselves? Well, when we're looking at things, we need to worry about the confidentiality of our information. We need to worry about loss of data, loss of work product. How long would it take you to recover all of your work product that you've had over the last month? What's that client going to say when you had a brief due and now you've got to start over again? Who's going to pay for that? Well, standard rules on backup and recovery is that you're to maintain 3 copies of your data on 2 media and 1 offsite source. So a good example of that might be your computer hard drive, your backup hard drive, which is a separate device, and an offsite source. In my case, it could be at home, it could be Dropbox, or at work, it could be World Docs or DMS or something like that. You want to have 3 copies of all your data, and if your law firm is doing that, you want to make sure and talk to them about what they're doing. Automate your backup. If you're at home, make sure to automate your backup and you're in control of that. If you're not at home, decide what a right frequency of your automated backup is and try to make sure that you have that. Fortify your security. Let's look at passwords. Don't use password stink for every single password you have. If someone breaches your Chase Visa account and your password is the same as all of your other passwords, they have access and can get access to all of your accounts and all of your information. Different programs such as LastPass, which I use, can actually generate passwords and store those passwords, so that way you have random password generation and it changes over time, and you could adjust that as well. We promise consideration of public records. So we'll talk about that quickly. And I think I'm running short on time, so I've got to be a little bit careful. So public records are documents, papers, letters, maps, basically anything, any information that's transmitted to a public agency or governmental entity. And these are likely generated in our practice, maybe in a bid scenario. They could be generated in a permit application reporting scenario. It could also come into play when an inspection happens in a facility where they're taking pictures that are going to go up on Oculus. There are various places where public records can be generated, and we need to be aware of all the locations. A lot of times clients are worried about, well, can I prevent that from becoming a public record? Well, exemptions are present in Chapter 119 and elsewhere throughout Florida statutes. And one of the big things to think about is trade secrets. Trade secrets need to be properly maintained. They need to be secret information that's financially beneficial. You can see the statutory definition at these 2 statutory provisions, 688.002.4 and 812.081.1c. They need to be secret, maintained secret. They need to provide value, and they need to be subject to all proper precautions to maintain the trade secret status. Section 403.111, which is also, as any of you know, is more of your environmental statute, also exempts secret processes that relate to the manufacture and production for financial information that are otherwise not public record. And that really goes to environmental information as well. We'll look at some cases so you could actually see. So one of the key things about the public records and claiming them, if you are going to be submitting information to, let's say, DEP, and you want it to be protected, exempt from public records law, one thing you definitely have to do, and the cases are pretty consistent on this, you have to make sure to make a note that this is exempt and it is trade secret information, or exempt for whatever reason it's exempt. 3 cases: Cubic Transportation Systems v. Miami-Dade County. I wasn't really able to see what was the crux of this case, but the issue here is that Cubic failed to mark the documents now in question as confidential, continued to supply them without asserting even a legally ineffectual post-delivery claim to confidentiality for some 30 days after it had once attempted to do so by informing county staff. So one thought about that is, is that it just kind of goes to tell you where the court is taking you. They're not going to grant you the exemption in this case. One thing about this too is that it didn't matter that they said that they talked to the county. Because nothing was labeled, because nothing was actually written, that actually had great effect. In the next case, the customer list, oops, sorry guys. In the next case, oh boy, hold on, right there, right there, right there. In the James v. Attorney General case, customer lists were being sought, and those were situations where the customer lists provided to the AG as part of the investigation were properly marked and held to be trade secrets and exempt. Once again, you mark it, you've got a good chance of winning. Finally, in the Sepro case, which is one in Florida Department of Environmental Protection, this was a case where, as a practical and legal matter, a conversation with a state employee is not enough to prevent the information being made available. And upon learning that the public records were requested, Sepro wrote to DEP designated that various submittals were trade secrets. So when they learned about it, then it became a trade secret. No, it always has to be a trade secret. You have to know this. One last practice point is that in a trade secret case, if you're defending the position of a trade secret that's properly protected, properly marked, properly notified, and properly noticed of the agency that it is a trade secret, you're in a much better position to argue that point because you're arguing from a position of you know the information, whereas the people that are trying to get the information are arguing from a position where they can't see the information. So a good practice point is to really be strong on trade secret protection if you can be. One area that happened recently was that we talked to the county in a case, and we said they can't take pictures on their inspections because all of the assembly line and all the manufacturing processes are trade secreted. So right now, in that case, we had to send a letter, talk about the trade secret, talk why it's trade secret, and that prevents information from getting up so that competitors can see the line, see how it's done, and copy it. Real quickly, continuity of service. So as always, we need to be prepared for continuity of service. We're more used to hurricanes, maybe computer viruses, flooding, maybe pandemic now. I guess we're all getting very, very used to it. But overall, we need to be ready to work almost 24 hours a day from anywhere and everywhere. The elements of a continuous operation plan, every firm should be thinking about this. Who, what, when, and where. Who needs to be involved in the plan? The executive director needs to know how the firm is operating. Marketing needs to be able to communicate with the clients. Litigation needs to know what critical timeframes are coming up in the cases. IT, how are we going to get all these attorneys to work remotely? Partners, what's the financial impact of this situation? And how are my clients going to be impacted as well? All these things go to the continuity of legal practice and continuity of business practice. The Florida Bar at legalfuel.com offers great continuity planning devices and examples. I encourage you to go there. As far as when you need to decide about activation, deactivation, do a phone tree. Who has a phone tree where you're checking to see where each employee is? And do you have current numbers for each employee, not with their landlines, but with their cell phones? Do you have a satellite phone accessible for people in your office for really critical cases? And the where. It could be anywhere these days. I'm in my basement. We're calling you from 3 different parts of the state. So that is a real new element. It used to be where you're relocating your office. Now, more often than not, I would say that everybody's just relocating and hunkering down at their homes. So we'll move on. Rule 1.3.8. I think I've got, Catherine, please tell me if I have a couple minutes left to talk about this.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is the right to inventory rule. And if you're a member of the Florida Bar in private practice, you are required to have designated a person that will serve as your inventory attorney under the rule. The purpose of this rule is to avoid prejudice to the clients, and it also avoids the claims that could possibly be brought against the subject attorney for any prejudice that could occur. This is really, maybe it's not quite suited for those operating in a practice group. It might be more suited for a solo practitioner. But in Florida, we do have possibilities where attorneys could become, heaven forbid, unable to practice for their clients and leave a client in a situation where they need counsel or they have a pending deadline that needs to be addressed. Within the Florida Bar's website, on your page for your profile, please note this right here, inventory attorney under the additional link section. If you click there, you will find out if you have designated inventory attorney. And please realize that all private practicing attorneys shall designate an inventory attorney. It's not a may, it's a shall. So you need to be doing that to be compliant with Florida Bar rules. A couple of practice points on it. That attorney doesn't have to be part of the attorney-client relationship. This rule doesn't apply to government attorneys or in-house counsel. And this is also, that attorney needs to be able to perform a matching function. So talk to your clients and match them with new counsel. That's a good point. New counsel. This is not to be confused with a coverage attorney. Coverage attorney is, I'm taking a long needed vacation and Jeff is covering all the cases while I'm gone. I'm coming back. The inventory attorney is a situation where you're not likely to come back or you're not likely to come back for quite some time. We want to make sure a lot of people have their managing shareholders or managing partners as their inventory attorney, but they haven't updated their profile. Update your profile, because the idea is that the Florida Bar wants everyone to have that inventory attorney on record. So, some last thoughts. We've got some great resources. The Florida Bar is looking ahead and looking at now. Legal Fuel was really set up as the practices of law shift from the large firms to the small firms to even smaller firms. Legal Fuel even now is even an incredible resource. You can get free CLE. You can get a lot more detail on the inventory rule because there's a great CLE on it where you can get an additional hour of CLE credit for free. The ABA has a disaster and response preparedness webpage. Go there if you want to figure out how to do a good COOP plan. Finally, one thing, the Florida Bar is setting up a helpline for all attorneys at this strained time. And what that helpline is set up to do is it connects members with professional counselors, and you get 3 telehealth counseling sessions per year to develop strategies to overcome your challenges, balance your priorities, help better handle your practice. Those calls are I think they can be valuable because you're talking to people that are advising attorneys and they're seeing the issues of the day. So if you're interested, there's your idea and there's your Florida Lawyers Helpline. Take time to update your Florida Bar profile. And that concludes my presentation. I thank you very much. And I will stop sharing my screen so you can hear from Catherine Rossmill.
Thank you, Joe. Carlin, do you just want to check that real quickly? But I'm pretty sure that was just me.
Okay.
Joe, we had a couple of comments, but I'm pretty sure that they were just me in the comment box.
Okay, if anybody has questions, you can put it on the Q&A or.
All right, let's do that, and I'll go ahead and get started. We will have a question and answer session at the end of this. So give me just a second here to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see my screen? All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. We're still here. Go.
All right, this is a really disconcerting way to give a presentation, by the way. So at the end of this, whatever panels you go see, please go tell your panelists that you understand that it was probably a strange presentation for them. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Joe. I'm going to give a slightly different bio of myself, partly because I want you all to understand where I'm coming from with this presentation. I am a land use and environmental lawyer. I've been practicing with Lewis, Longman, and Walker for almost the past 8 years, practices all over the state, and that's where I'm going to stop that part of it. The unofficial part of my biography is that I'm a busy lady, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a lawyer, and I'm a completely disorganized person when left to my own devices. And so a couple of years ago, when my husband and I had a son, I realized that my disorganization was really having an impact on my family life and on my work life, because I wasn't able to just sort of remember where all of my various pieces of paper were at any given time back when my brain had more space before we had a kid. And so I kind of took on this project that mentally for me was just sort of the get yourself together project, Catherine. Like I was gonna, overnight oat my way out of not having enough time in my day. And I realized eventually that that was just optimism built on nothing, but there are people who study that concept, and it's called productivity. And there are podcasts and books and people who dedicate entire careers to learning how to make your workflow more efficient. And so I spent about a year reading up on it, just implementing different practices. And that really helped me sort of feel like my life got a little bit back together, like I got some more time back in my week when I started doing those things. Now, flash forward to the pandemic, because so many of those fixes were technology based, it was actually pretty easy for me to pick up and come work from my house. I miss my coworkers like crazy, but as far as transferring my practice to my house, took about an hour and a half. I packed up 2 boxes of binders that I rely on and made the commute home, and that was it. So I'm hopeful that in sharing some of what I went through, which I selected basically using the very scientific method of these are the things that helped me the most. I'm hopeful that I can give you guys a couple of tips that might make your working from home easier, that make your working out of the office in any capacity easier. And even when you get back to the office, because I am hopeful that at some point that will be something that we do again, that those things can continue to help you there. So with that, this presentation is going to really focus on Apple and Microsoft products, because I think that's what most people have. Most people tend to have iPhones, and Microsoft is really everywhere. But pretty much everything is translatable to other programs, but I list the specific, file options steps for you to get there in this presentation. So I haven't included those for anything but Apple and Microsoft. And I'm going to email this presentation out after you're done, so don't worry about trying to write down the steps that you might see on the screen. So with that, as we said, this will always matter, and technology was always becoming more a part of our lives. Now it's just sort of the way that we exist. And even if you are in an office setting, you might need to be able to pick yourself up and move 6 feet away from someone else, which is easier to do with an iPad than it is to do with 4 or 5 big different binders. So this presentation is really going to focus on making the most out of your technology. I'm not going to talk to you about the importance of work-life balance and setting hours for yourself when working at home and putting a blanket behind you in a Zoom meeting. This isn't that kind of work from home presentation, but I'm like I said, I'm optimistic that there will be things in here that are useful to you. So the first part of this is I want you to think about setting up your technology in a way that makes sense, and not in a way that happens by chance order in which you download your programs and apps, which is how most of us operate. We see something we like, we download it, it sits on that screen. Maybe we have set up one of those mini folders and put some stuff in there. And that's what we're going to call organization. You would be surprised, and there are actual statistics on this that I'm not going to quote to you, about how much time most people spend scrolling back and forth between screens to find the right app. And so taking the time to really set these things up can actually save you a significant amount of time in the long run. I also want you to think about, as this is going through, what your hangups with using different forms of technology are. For me, I couldn't really become an effective technology user until it got to a place where I could handwrite it on as naturally as I could handwrite with a pen. There may be something else that holds you back. Think about what you miss from your office. Do you miss having a copier? Do you miss having a scanner? Do you miss having all of these other sort of various accoutrements, and what can you use to compensate for that? And this is my favorite thing to think about. What has bothered you more than 3 times? And that sounds like a really small number. Almost everything has bothered you more than 3 times about technology. But there are things where every time you are working on them, you're slightly annoyed that you're having to do it. Those are the things that someone else has probably already been annoyed by and probably already solved for you. And a quick Google can end up saving you so much time in your future. So there are, I stopped counting at some point, but there are a little over 30 suggestions, tips, and apps listed in this presentation. I would suggest maybe picking 3 to 5. None of this is really master chess. It's all pretty basic at this level, but some of these things can really save you a lot of time and heartache. And so I hope you find some that are useful. My favorite part about using technology, and this is a little bit repetitive of what I've already said, but it's reached the point where you don't have to adapt to yourself as much to use the technology well, because now it's to the point where it can really adapt to you. And my favorite example of this is this: what does your brain look like? I mean, are you a person who uses sticky notes everywhere on your desk? Are you a person who absolutely must have a to-do list to start your day? Or are you somewhere in the middle of it? I am 90% a to-do list person, but every once in a while my sticky notes get out of control. And there are whole programs that have been set up by someone else very usefully to help you work in a way that is effective for you, on the technology rather than you having to learn to work in a way that isn't natural to you while you're using it. So it's a really good time to start. Even if you've been really using your iPad as a glorified email checker, there's a lot more that can be done, and it's pretty easy to get started. One of the most important things to know, though, is that above the actual cost of technology, to make it truly useful and customizable to you, you're going to need to spend $100 to $200 above that. And that's just practical. There are certain apps that are worth spending money on. Getting a protective case is something you all know at this point is a really worthy investment, particularly if you're like at my house where I have 2 dogs and a cat and a husband and a child, and everyone is trying to destroy all of the nice things. So I need to think about my casing, and more than what's pretty, I need to think about, oh, can I make it waterproof? Can I keep all of my professional stuff zipped in one place? I need a paper notepad with me at all times. Can my case hold that as well? So putting thought into how to maximize the efficiency of each piece of your gear can end up saving you a lot of space, but can also make it a lot more convenient to work with, because I know when I pick up my one case, I have my iPad, I have my stylus, I have my keyboard, and I have my piece of paper, and I can pick up and move. I don't have to go gather all of those things. So it ends up being an efficiency. 10-foot cords, go ahead and buy them no matter what device you're using. Especially now, you need to get away from people, but anytime you're in a room, you don't know where the nearest plug is going to be. Get a charger that supports more than one USB cord. That's just practical. You probably also have a phone and a laptop, or a phone and an iPad, or more than one, or someone you want to make friends with that doesn't have a charger. It's always good to have an extra outlet. Spare batteries if you are going to be traveling anywhere. Like I said, I still will never give up pen and paper. It's good as a backup. It's good when you don't want to pass your iPad or your computer around the room. I mean, sometimes you just do need those old-fashioned things, but as an add-on, not as the primary source. Okay, so we kind of already covered a lot about this, but I want to talk a little bit more about setting up your apps thoughtfully. So there are different ways to organize your apps that can make them more useful to you. And it really depends, again, on what your preference is. So my preference is to set up my apps so that all of my work apps are on one screen, all of my travel apps are on another screen, all of the sort of entertainment apps are on another screen, and that works well for me. One of my close friends organizes his apps by color. That would drive me crazy, but that's what's useful to him. It helps him get to his apps just as quickly as it helps me get to mine. All his different apps are on different screens, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Works for him. God bless him. I could never do that. I have another friend who has carpal tunnel in one of her hands. So all of the apps that she uses regularly are on the right-hand side of her iPad, because that's what works for her. And by taking the time to organize her apps that way, she's actually saving herself physical pain and damage because she invested the 20 minutes to do it. So what I always suggest at the beginning of getting a new piece of technology, and then twice throughout the year, really every 6 months or so, is taking the time to set a work session with yourself on your calendar to go through and be thoughtful about how all of your things that are organized and whether or not you're still using all of those things that you're downloading. Because just like an actual physical desk, which if you saw my desk right now, you would believe that I'm an extremely disorganized person. Your digital life can get the same way. It'll be cluttered with documents you don't need, with apps you don't use, with apps that have not even updated in 6 or 7 years. I guarantee you, some of you have solitaire back there that is just never going to work again. So think about cleaning those up and keeping your digital life clean as well. All right, safety first. Joe talked a little bit about maintaining confidentiality. With the technology, there are actually kind of 2 practical ways to do this. Besides a password manager, which Joe mentioned, and I've listed here some of the recommended password managers from CNET. All of these are considered reputable password managers. I personally use Dashlane, partly because it has extras that I like. It comes with a virtual private network. It comes with dark red monitoring. It comes with credit monitoring. It comes with a lot of other features. It's more expensive. It's about $60 a year, but I feel like I get a lot out of it. So besides a password manager, the other things that you need to think about are getting an actual physical shade for your laptop or your iPad, because sometimes you'll be, like Joe was saying, in an airport and you actually don't know who's sitting behind you. And I have an example. This didn't happen to me, but this was a national news story a couple of years ago. There were staffers for 2 political opponents who ended up on the same flight, and one of them was seated directly behind the other, and the one in the front didn't have a screen shade on. And her opponent spent the entire flight reading her laptop screen and getting all the information off it. So if she had just put on a shade screen, she could have prevented that from happening. And they're not expensive. They're permanent ones. The magnetic ones are a little more expensive, but you can take them off. They're all over Amazon. They're really useful. Highly recommend them. And then getting a virtual private network. That's essentially the digital version of a shade screen. It just prevents people from, when you're using public Wi-Fi, from getting access to what it is that you're working on. Let's see. Oh, scrubbing metadata. So this is probably a term that you all have heard. To the extent that it sounds like a vague, mysterious word, you're not quite sure what it means. What it basically means is if you're typing in Microsoft Word and you and your partner are collaborating on something, and you've inserted text and you take it out and you're making a bunch of changes, and then say, you send it to, it's a mediation statement or something, and something that you need to share with opposing counsel, let's say. There's actually a way, and under Florida bar rules, you're not supposed to do this, but opposing counsel can actually go back and track what changes you made, and it may give them insights into your thought patterns that you don't want them to have. So the way that you prevent that is it's called scrubbing your metadata. It's actually really simple to do. Here are the steps for Microsoft Word for how you do it. And by doing it, you actually maintain your client confidentiality. And it's something that everyone needs to be familiar with. Dual factor authentication. You're probably all familiar with this to some degree. A lot of technology experts will tell you that everything should be dual factor authentication. What that means is, you try and log into, say, Facebook, and you get, or if you're signing into your bank account from a new device, and they'll send you, oh, we sent you a security code to your primary device, and then you have to type in your security code to get into the website from a new computer. That's what this refers to. I truthfully don't have it set up for everything, but I do have it set up for everything that relates to client confidentiality, using my money, or getting into my house. So for example, my garage door opener is linked to my phone. I actually didn't ask for that, it just came with it, but I don't want someone to be able to steal my phone and then break into my house. So I have dual factor authentication set up for that, so that anyone who's trying to open my garage door has to have my fingerprint. So that's a safety thing to think about. All right. Now we're going to get down to the actual more useful things, not just how to think about things, but what to actually do. This is my favorite place to be a hypocrite. My inbox is something that I try really hard to keep at zero. It almost never happens, but there are some things that I have learned that help me keep the numbers lower and help me be able to use my inbox more like a to-do list. My favorite tip for cleaning out your inbox, if you're currently sitting with an inbox that is full of 1,000 emails, is to search the word unsubscribe. And what that's going to do is bring up all of your newsletters that you were pretty sure you were going to get to 6 months ago, and it just hasn't happened. So if you sort by the word unsubscribe, and then you sort by sender, it'll give you a really fast way to clean out a bunch of those emails, start unsubscribing, and get a lot of your inbox space back. I also like setting up what I call practical folders, which are folders for those emails that you're going to need in the future, but you don't quite need today, but you don't want to delete them, but they're definitely going to live in your inbox for the next year or so. And so things like receipts for things that you've ordered, you obviously want to hold on to your receipt. You don't want to delete it, but maybe you don't have a file set up for that. Or if you're going to an event, or you need like to keep your Zoom link, for example, but you don't want to put it in your calendar for some reason, setting up these folders will give you a way to get those items out of your inbox, but not somewhere where you have to keep them for forever. So if you set up these sort of practical folders, you can clean them out, once a week. It'll take you 10 seconds. You'll know you'll be done with your events for the week. It'll help save you a lot of inbox space. Setting up rules. Again, and I'm going to give you just a quick sneak preview. The actual steps to do these things are on this next page, so I'm not going to walk through them, but when you get this presentation, it'll tell you how to do it. So if you set up rules, there are emails that I receive that I want to continue to receive. I mean, certain newsletters are a good example where I think that they have good information. The chance that I'm actually going to read them that particular week is pretty much slim to none. So I have rules set up that any email that's generated from XYZ Center is sent to a folder called Probably Delete Me. It's honestly about 150 to 200 emails a week that don't come into my inbox. Again, sorted by sender, look through, see if there's anything real quickly you want to read, and delete it. It will save you hours and hours of individually clicking through your emails to clean them out. Quick steps in Microsoft Outlook. If you are in your Microsoft Outlook and you look at the top sort of center of your screen, there's a section called Quick Steps. And what that is, it allows you to set up one-button functions for various things in your email. So the two most useful quick steps, in my opinions, are filing emails. So if there's a client that you do a lot of work on, you need to save all of those emails. If you set up a button in your quick step, it will allow you to just file all of those emails by pushing one button. And same thing with sending group emails. I do a lot of work that's collaboration between, you know, planners, engineers, lawyers, I mean, other professionals. And we have these big working groups of 15 people, but the work groups kind of fluctuate. And I don't really want to set up a group contact for them and, you know, make that available to everyone. So what I'll do is I'll set up a quick step that's the working group for XYZ project. And I click on that button and it automatically sets up an email with my preferred signature block with all of their email addresses inputted. And it saves me just, that's one of those things that annoyed me more than 3 times was typing everyone in the group and remembering, did I get everybody who serves on that board with me in there? And I'm counting the people to make sure, okay, well, there are 8 people on the board. I only have 7 email addresses. Who's, you know, it's one of those quick steps that can actually save you time. And finally, this is a tip that I stole from someone else, but I really liked it, called email bankruptcy. I actually did this. There was a point in time when I came back kind of from maternity leave and I looked at my inbox and I realized if it was over a year old, there wasn't anything actionable in there. So I didn't want to delete those emails, but I did move them to a separate folder. I could deal with them later. And it took so many emails out of my inbox that it helped me keep my inbox as sort of a workable, functional system and not just a place to collect crap where hopefully I can just come up with the right search terms to find what I need when I'm looking for it. Okay, so again, here's the practical steps to do it. I'm not going to go through this, but this is for when you go home and you take a couple of hours in your work session to set it up. Here's the actual buttons you need to push to accomplish that. Okay, document interfacing. So one of the things that I like to point out is you actually don't need the best app for everything that there is. You want to avoid what I call shiny object syndrome, which means that you flit from app to app to app to app trying to find, you know, the best app for each little thing that there is. And there are lots of people who do this. I think it's important to prioritize those things that are really important to you. And those are the apps that you spend the most time with. And those are the ones that are probably worth spending some money on. So I have a handwriting app. It's called NoteShelf 2. This is my very favorite app in the world. It's a PDF converter, but it also allows me to write on it and highlight it and type in there and search for words and do all of those other things. That was worth spending $10 for me on. So when you're talking about what spends the bulk of your time, that's the app that's worth prioritizing the spending on, but you want to sit down and think about what features you would like for that to have. So for me, any kind of document editing software or app needed to have both a handwriting and a typing feature because my brain does not function if I can't handwrite. And that's been a big hang up for me. I needed to be able to store all of the documents in an orderly fashion. Some apps and some programs are really not good at that. I needed to be able to search through them. I needed to be able to convert files. So if I get a Microsoft Word file, I really need to be able to convert it to a PDF. And not every program can do that. And a lot of handwriting apps also allow you to convert your handwriting to text, which if you have chicken scratch like me, can turn out to be really useful. So again, just taking a thoughtful approach, thinking about what you would like to see in any particular app that you get, and then making that your priority as far as where you're spending your money and your time. Will save you a lot of frustration. Quick tip at the bottom, most document writing programs, Microsoft Word has ink. It's not great to use, to be honest, if you like to handwrite. So most document interface apps will want you to convert to PDF. Sometimes that's a little tricky on Apple documents, especially if you're trying to convert like a website or, you know, if you're downloading the Florida statutes and you want to be able to highlight it. A lot of them don't really do it well, but Apple is really good at converting everything to an iBook. So you can convert things to an iBook that will then email it to you in a PDF. So that'll save you some time. How are we doing for time? Okay. Microsoft Word. This is where we all spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time and we've probably not ever thought about setting it up. So my home screen for Microsoft Word has a customized ribbon, meaning that I went through it and I took out all the buttons that I didn't know what they did or I never used. Because just like I don't keep tools on my desk that I don't know how to use. I mean, I don't have surveying instruments sitting on my desk. I didn't want that stuff on my digital screen either. And so here is how you can go through and actually take out the sections of your header that you don't use. Like I never used outline styles. It took up a giant section. of my screen. And I put in those things that I do use all the time. I insert page numbers all the time. I insert page breaks all the time. I insert tables all the time. I use track changes like it's nobody's business. So all of those things are now in my home screen, and I don't have to click around. And it's really surprising how much time and headache that will save you when everything that you need is all in one place. It's, you know, if you cook, it's your mise en place, right? Everything is right there where you need it, ready to go. Same concept applies to this. You may not know that you can set up shortcuts for symbols that you use a lot. You know, as I type the section symbol a lot, and I type the paragraph symbol a lot, just in the kind of work that I do. And so rather than going every time to insert symbol, scroll through, find the right one, click it, you can set up a shortcut. So when I hit Command 6 or Control 6, the section symbol is inserted. When I hit Command 7, the paragraph symbol is inserted. I mean, it's instinctive to me now. I've had that set up since college. And now when I'm on a keyboard where it's not set up, it throws me for a loop for a second. Again, one of those things that's annoying, but can really easily be remedied. Same thing, I have to refer a lot to, Florida statutes that have a lot of subparagraphs that are in these parentheses. And so C and E always get converted to the copyright and the Euro signal. And then I always have to go back and undo the little thundercloud button. That's really annoying. You can actually turn that feature off and save yourself that kind of back editing time. And I think a lot of these things, you know, particularly I think lawyers sometimes rely really heavily on our legal assistants to do a lot of these things for us. And sometimes when we're working out of the office, it's not quite as convenient to have that happen, especially if you're working odd hours, which a lot of us are now with this pandemic. And so getting the machine to make these changes for you rather than a person is a really big efficiency. And finally, if you do a lot of collaborative work, track changes is a wonderful thing, but something that ends up clogging the track changes process a lot is when everyone makes formatting changes, and you're really just interested in the substantive changes, but you know, someone accidentally changed a font and it will end up just really clogging up your document. There's actually a way for you to go in and accept all the formatting changes without touching any of the text changes, and so it will save you and your legal assistant, if you use one, or any other type of professional assistant, a lot of time from accepting those changes if you just do it all in one batch. It takes 3 or 4 seconds. This is, I think, one of my office's favorite functions that we've learned about recently. It saves everyone a lot of time. All right, this is my actual favorite tip, because this is, in terms of actual moments gained back, this is the fastest one. There are phrases that you probably type over and over again, whether you're filling out timesheets, whether you're writing emails. I, for years, signed my emails, you know, at least 4 or 5 times a day. I was typing, "Thanks very much, and as always, please feel free to reach out if I can assist you with anything further." Every time, and I mean it. It's not, I wasn't being trite about it, that's just how I closed my emails. That takes a lot longer to type than this shortcut that I set up. Now I type TVM AAA, which is not a phrase that I will ever type again, so I don't have to worry about it automatically converting some strange phrase in the middle of a sentence, and that auto-populates. And you can do that with anything. I mean, I never type Lower East Coast Water Supply Plan, for example, or receive and respond to email communication with. I mean, those are phrases, if I just type in 3 or 4 letters, those things auto-populate. So if you're filling out timesheets, if you're writing client reports, if you use standard language in anything, these text expanders can really save you hours and hours a week. I mean, depending on what you do, you can insert whole paragraphs this way. It's really a remarkable feature just in terms of time saved, so you don't have to either type it out every time or copy and paste. This is my actual favorite tip. It can be done on Apple products. It can be done in all Microsoft. It can really be done in most programs. Just Google text expander for whatever program you're looking at. And when you do it, for example, on an Apple product, it will do it. Most of the time it'll convert it across your devices, but it'll work in every program you're using it in, because it ties, if you use the formula that I've set right here, it ties it to the actual keyboard, so you don't have to do it for every individual app. The iPad will do it, or the iPhone will do it automatically. Frozen. There we go. Sorry. Here we go. All right, team coordination. I'm going to skip the part about video chatting, because clearly we all can Zoom, at least for a little bit at this moment. But there are a couple of things that are really useful when you're working out of the office. One of those is shared to-do lists if you're working on a project. My favorite app for this is called Todoist. It's a personal to-do app, but you can invite people to certain projects and give them access to only certain lists. It's really useful. I have one set up for someone that I work with a lot. I'll put something on the list. When someone does it and checks it off the list, everyone gets notified. It's really convenient. There are lots of to-do list type functions that do this. Document collaboration, besides Gmail, there's Dropbox, ShareFile, Google Docs. I mean, there's a lot of ones that do it. I don't want to talk about kind of any of the ones that would rely on your IT professional to set up. This is really ones that you can do individually. You know, if your firm or whatever group you're working with doesn't have a platform that already supports this, this is something that you can do individually to help collaborate with those people that you work with regularly. And then Apple AirDrop and meetings. I don't know if you all do this regularly, but it's actually kind of magical. I can be working with, you know, another attorney in my firm, and we'll be sitting in a room with consultants or opposing counsel, and opposing counsel will be asking them something. And while they're talking, I can look it up on my iPad, AirDrop it to that person. So she's not had to stop listening to go look for the document while he's talking. She knows that if she just waits a minute, it's going to pop up in front of her face. I'm going to have found it and sent it to her, and she can keep going on like she knew the answer off the top of her head. It's really convenient. It's really smooth. It's a really great feature that Apple has. As a practical matter, in legal contracts right now, if you're a lawyer, make sure that all of your contracts allow for electronic signatures and PDFs and for things to be executed in multiple parts. A lot of that is standard anyway, but I am frequently surprised by how many contracts right now don't have this language in it. This is not legal advice. This is just a suggestion, but take a look at this, think about this concept, and make sure that you are paying attention to that for your contracts. And then RPost is a form of e-delivery proof. And if you don't know what RPost is, it's basically like a read receipt that you don't have to consent to. And you also may not know what's happening. So you could be getting emails right now where someone has sent it via RPost. You don't know that it's sent via RPost, and then they have gotten confirmation that you have read the email. There are just certain situations where it comes up where you may want delivery confirmation. It's kind of like the certified mail of email. So it's just kind of a useful thing to be aware of, both to use and to know that it may be happening to you as well. This is the most important thing you need to know about any piece of technology you have is this is probably not your full-time gig, and you probably know someone whose full-time gig it is, and you should be nice to that person. One, because their job is hard, and two, because you are going to absolutely need their help at some point. So make sure that you treat that person nicely and professionally and buy them a Christmas gift. All right, I want to quickly run through my top favorite apps and tell you why I like them. Note Shelf 2, this is my ride or die app. Like I said, this is the one where I handwrite in it, I highlight in it, all of my documents are in here. This is how I sort documents, this is how I store documents. An amazing $10, highly recommend it. Todoist is like a to-do list on steroids. It's a to-do list that you can attach all supporting documents to, so you can email things to it, and so it'll add them to your to-do list automatically. It syncs across all of your devices. It's available on a website. You can ask people to join your lists. The free version is good. The $30 a year version is outstanding. I'm a really big fan. Dashlane is my password manager of choice because it does give me all of these other features. They also have family plans. But even if you only get a single plan, you can upload your entire family's email system into it to check for dark web monitoring. So I like that. Microsoft 365, it allows all of your Microsoft documents to sync across all your devices. So no matter where you're working, you have access to it all. If this, then that, it's an app, it's free. It's really good for connecting your various devices in your apps and making them work with each other. So for example, I have a daily to-do list in Todoist. I have it linked to my calendar. So anything that appears on my calendar also appears in my to-do list as a thing I need to accomplish. So when I wake up and look at my to-do list, I know both the tasks I need to accomplish and the meetings that are on my schedule. It's very convenient to have that all in one place. That app is what helped me get that there. Any kind of scanning app will really do. Tiny Scanner is the one I have. It's inexpensive, it works well. VLC media player. If you ever get video files that you have trouble viewing on Apple devices because they're like a WMV file or anything else, VLC is a free media player. It works really well. I've yet to find a file it can't open, so I highly recommend that. iPads don't come with calculators. I find that weird. Download a free one. Again, that's not where, if I were an engineer, I would probably pay to get a really quality ad-free calculator. I'm a lawyer. I don't need that much. So that's not where I've made a big investment. You all know about collaborating. Awesome Note is just a standard note-taking typing app. It's slightly better than the one on Apple. To be honest, it's not the best one out there, but it's good enough for, and I've had it for so long. This is where I've avoided shiny object syndrome. I haven't needed a fancier one, so I've just never upgraded, but really it's good to have any kind of a typing note-taking app. Sorry, I can't actually see my mouse. I don't know if you guys can, so it's causing me a little consternation. All right, couple of closing thoughts. Clean out your digital files just like you would your desk. For me, that's rarely, but shoot for once every 6 months. That seems like a positive goal. I do not ever believe, as much as I rely on my technology, that it's any kind of substitute for human contact. When that's a thing we're allowed to do again, don't let technology be your shield. Zoom meetings will never be as good as sitting across from someone. I firmly believe that, so don't think that this is a substitute for that. Piggyback off other people's brain power. You will be surprised what annoys you has already annoyed someone else, and they've already found a solution. Go be a magpie, take their nice shiny object, use it for yourself. It's better that way. And like I said, I will email a copy of this presentation. I'm sorry I was speaking really quickly, but if you have any questions, I think we're going to open that up now. And let me get out of my screen share. Again, I cannot actually see my mouse, so wish me luck here. Yeah.
There we go.
I still can't see my mouse, but okay. So it looks like we have a couple of items in the chat.
Catherine, I'm not seeing any chats.
Yeah, I just realized that someone was very, very kindly asking me to go ahead and organize their inbox for them. So it's not actually a public chat.
Yeah, I'll take that help.
But I like it. Do we have any questions from anybody that's sitting there in person with you, Carlin?
Anybody want to ask something? I'll ask something. I'm interested, and I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but are there any of those apps that you might be able to demonstrate for us? The handwriting one, anything?
So I'm not sure. I'm not on my iPad at the moment, but I can show you how it works. Sure, no problem.
I think, Catherine, just while you're looking that up, that was a great job. Those tips were, I think we're all eager to get a copy of your presentation so we can check out the apps. Boy, look at those pictures.
So this was, the other day we found out that my son's school is closing and will not be opening for probably 6 months. And so normally I like to make nice organized to-do lists of things that I need to get done. The other day, my brain felt a lot more like this. So I pull out my handy dandy handwriting app. I can write down all of the things that are making me feel a little haywire. I can color code them because I incorrectly believe that that will make it more workable. And now I feel better about things. I'm just, my brain truly functions better when I can write things down. Yeah. And typing has never filled that gap for me. But there are
a very visual person, so
have adapted it that it's, I mean, it truly made being a working parent significantly easier, especially when shortly after I had my son, I had a client that wanted me to come work in their office 2 days a week, which is great. And that's a great experience. But it did mean that I needed to be able to pick up everything that was important and leave a couple of days a week. And technology is the only way that you can do that without breaking your back.
Yeah, so I appreciate the tips that you had in terms of using that handwriting. Did you have one that was where you could notate documents? You know, you're reading a case and you want to write something in the margin. Same app.
Note too. Yep, you can write in the margins, you can highlight, you can draw shapes, you can type, you can insert photos, you can search text.
Yeah, I know for me, that's been one of the adjustments in working remotely, as we all have during COVID, is, you know, I like my pieces of paper with my notes in the margins and the words circled and all of that. I just, helps me remember. That's when I think of a concept, I think of what it looks like on the piece of paper. So having that, so what I've been trying to learn to do, for example, we have a program called Nuance. I don't know if many of you all have that. It's a PDF program that lets you do a lot of those things. And so, for example, if I have a group of cases that I'm using for some project, I try to highlight, actually I convert them from Westlaw, I convert them to Word, and then I highlight. And so that's been my visual sort of substitute for my paper document with my notes in the margins. So I'm in that point. I'm not quite as advanced as you, but I'm at that point where I'm in sort of transition of learning to live without paper. And it's not easy for those of us who've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, and truly in the office, I'm one of the people who, you know, will go, if we go get a nice new set of pens, like I'm very excited to go to the pen box. You know, I'm one of those tactile writers. I like nice
Office
paper, I like pens.
supply geek.
Yeah, and you know, if I had told, you know, 12-year-old me that, I would have thought that I was crazy. But truly, there is something to it, and it really took for the technology to get to a point where it felt like a reasonable facsimile of that to make it workable for me. And that's what is nice with where it is now is I don't have to adapt to technology nearly as much as I have to find the technology that's already adapted to me. And for the most part, I can see what's there. We do have another question here. It says, Tim and Joe, do you think the rules, interpretations, and adjustments happening now in the face of the pandemic are adequately keeping up with the plethora of hurdles and adjustments facing the professional practice today? Or do you think that we're just struggling to keep up with the regulations in real life?
I'll start out. You know, I think in some ways we're all kind of struggling with it. I mean, you know, when everybody when things started locking down in March, I think everybody, you know, pivoted and took a hard look at how their practices were operating and what the rules were and what needed to change and how, as a firm or as an individual lawyer, you're going to be able to keep up with that. And I am certain that, you know, when this is all done, you know, hopefully sooner rather than later, you know, we'll probably be seeing some changes to the rules to accommodate for some of the things that we've learned. And frankly, you know, some of these things are really applicable to other things, like some of the things that Joe pointed out, that, you know, they don't just apply to a pandemic, but, you know, you've got to have this stuff in place for other types of disasters as well. Joe, what are your thoughts?
I echo yours, Tim. Ben, it's a very good question. And one of the rules of the Florida Bar is when you're, let's say, for instance, leaving a firm, and how do you manage client files? The rule citation, I actually have the rule book, but I'm not going to try to dig into it because the Florida Bar rules are very small print. I'd have to take off my glasses. It would take too long. But one thing about that rule was it really goes to hard copy files. And that to me is an example where, you know, we've just done a whole presentation virtually and we're all practicing, a lot of us at home. The files now are something that can be transferred with a click of a mouse over the course of a minute or two. And that's a place, for instance, just an example within the Florida Bar rules that needs to advance to catch up. To your point about whether or not we're struggling to keep the regs with real life, I think we're doing that. I think whenever something happens and a complaint happens, a bar complaint happens, and the grievance committee or the attorney ACAPS, the attorney complaint assistance program, attorneys take matters in, I think they do try to balance everything in real life and try to evaluate the rule in context. But it does lead to, it's not that many cases that get to the Supreme Court. And so you're left with a lot of gaps in a lot of areas where you're constantly having to do reinterpretations. As Tim was saying, I think that this event of a serious interruption where the entire Florida Bar is working from home, most of the attorneys, a lot of attorneys are working from home, hearings are happening virtually, all these things, I think it's going to force the bar and it's going to force all of the practitioners to take a good hard look at our rules and to adjust and update them. I think right now, one last thing I'll say on it is it takes a little bit of time for these things to evolve to a point where they're really starting to gel so people could see how they need to be adjusted. So we're probably just looking at something, issues are going to happen today, and we're probably looking at something that's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years, I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just reactive in general. I mean, the way that the bar, promulgates its ethics opinions and interpret the rules, that's a reactive situation, and it's a lot of the ways that the rules of professional conduct and the ethics opinions are generated are reactively, rather than proactively envisioning, well, what kind of rules should we put in place in case there is a pandemic? And maybe this will change that a little bit, though.
I think one last point on that is, it could be a situation where the rules themselves don't change, but the comments to the rules change.
That's true.
So we could have interpretations of the rules subject to virtual environments and the like. So, I mean, there's various options that could happen where we make adjustments that don't necessarily have to change the underlying rules. But that's a great question. And that's another aspect of this panel that really makes this panel exciting and something of interest, I think, for all the practitioners.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to take a little issue with you calling it a sleepy panel at the beginning of yours. That just because we're not doing a kid, does not mean that we're not interesting.
One point I wanted to make, if there are any questions at the moment, I didn't bring this up in my discussion, but I had it as a note and I wanted to make a point of it. So we talk about the attorney-client privilege, attorney-client communications. For the practicing engineers, scientists, geologists out there, Catherine, you mentioned all of the teams, the collaborative teams that you work with, and that's often the case for me as well. I think for those practicing professionals, when working with an attorney and sending the attorney information that develops that attorney's work product to help that attorney develop the case for a client, I think that's when we really have to understand the work product privilege. I was just involved in a case, was with FDP was on one side, and one of the issues that came up really involved work product privilege. This was a issue where you have practicing professionals in developing the work product for attorneys, and that's one privilege in a government setting, which is the one privilege that can apply and can be very valuable. So for engineers, geologists, biologists, various people out there, when you're sending your email to the attorney that you're working with, automatically you're working with an attorney and you got a collaborative team. Think about that email. Think about that transfer of information. Are you sending that email to the attorney so that the attorney could look at it and evaluate it, juxtapose it to the rules, and give advice back to you, interpretation to the client? If that's the case, then you're really building the attorney's work product, and make sure to label attorney work product communication in your email. It's helpful, and in the case where you end up in a discovery situation, it's easier when things are properly marked and ahead of time. And then also one last thing on that, signature blocks. They might always have something like trying to make sure it goes to the right place and gets discarded if it goes to the wrong place. That does happen, believe it or not. But if you take upon yourself to specially mark, this is one of the things that I do. I specially mark when something is going to a client and it's really sensitive. That's part of that sliding scale. Sensitive information, I properly mark it so that way they know right off the bat what it is, attorney work product or attorney-client privileged communication. I think that's one thing for the scientists, non-attorneys, to really think about and work with their attorneys on, so that way you could properly present and transfer information with some hope and of having some level of privilege and confidentiality to the information for the protection of both of our clients.
All right, well, we are exactly 2 minutes early, which I think by most rules means that we are right on time. So unless there's anything else, why don't we go ahead and take a break? And Carlin, do you want us to be sort of back and ready for action about 15 minutes?
Yeah. What would that make it? 3:25?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see everybody back at 3:25 after the break.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right. I'm not going to disconnect. I'm definitely afraid. If I do anything, it'll like. Thank you for your help, by the way. Yes. Yeah. And the next one, that's going to be more important because we're going to be clicking around and some websites and things. So, hey, okay, yeah, 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 it's pretty good. I'll tell you a couple of things that I'm having trouble with. So if you, so when you move the cursor here, the little thing at the bottom shows up, the chat and the Q&A. And so I've had a couple of Q&As and a couple of chats, and they seem to vanish. Like, I don't know if Catherine was not supposed to be able to,
Hi, can I help?
yeah. So, yeah, hey, this is great. I've got somebody here. Come over here so she can see you. Asking about how to, he's a moderator tomorrow.
Hey, Catherine, Kevin Shortell. I'm the moderator of the drone session tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, great.
Here's the thing, so I had a couple of Q&As come up and a couple of chats, but I don't know if you removed them, but they went away.
Yes, I did. Well, we answered them, and then once you.
So you took them off. Okay.
That's right. We answered them, and then
So for
responded to them,
example,
and they moved.
okay. So for example, there were a couple of Q&As up there, and I didn't want to click on them during. I'm gonna stand over here so she can see me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to click on them when someone was speaking because
Right.
I thought it would go over the top of his presentation.
Yeah, it would have.
As a moderator, you kind of just have to wait, I guess, if somebody's sharing their screen. And
Catherine, again, I missed the beginning of the session today because we had to try to run with my panel on Zoom.
No excuses.
No, I know.
I'm gonna go.
So I guess, yeah, the question I had is why Q&A and chat? At the beginning of your session, did you instruct virtual attendees just use one, just use the
We
Q&A?
requested that they use Q&A, but some things just happen in chat. And to be frank, I accidentally sent a chat, but we asked them to use Q&A, and then we asked if they were in the room that they give their questions to Carlin if they were not logged in, so that she could direct them to us. The difference really is that the chat stays there and everyone can scroll through it, whereas the Q&A, once you answer the question, it kind of moves to a separate panel, so it's a little bit more efficient for keeping track of what's been answered. So it's a little bit of a better function, but you should probably check both because people are used to using chat.
Okay, but yeah, we'll instruct folks in our session. You know, the preferred thing is Q&A if you can, so we don't not looking all over the place.
Right.
And I guess the second thing, Catherine, when all of you were just live, while your session was going on, you know, the banner on top showed all 4 video feeds, and then did the person speaking, did that voice automatically make them the main video on the screen?
Yes. So if they are screen sharing, it's a little bit individual to the device, but for the most part, if they're screen sharing, the screen that they're sharing will be the bigger part, and the icons will be off to the side. Or the other alternative is that their voice will automatically make them the picture of the person that appears, which works pretty well until someone forgets to mute themselves when they're not talking and they make a background noise. It'll flash to them quickly. But
sure. Okay, so it's a voice activated transition of who the main person on the screen is.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Hey, listen, thanks for your time. Enjoy. Have some break time.
Good luck with your drone panel.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Hey, Julia. Oh, you're on mute, which you may know. You're on, I can't hear you.
Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my camera is down here, but my screen is up here because I'm using my little Surface, and it's hooked up to like a docking station. So it's kind of disorienting to see myself looking up.
It's not here. Go ahead and look at your screen where you're gonna be looking for the presentation. It's not too bad. It's really not.
Okay. Do you mind? I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Can you let me know if the size is okay? Because what I'd like to do is have my notes to one side of my screen and the shared screen to the other. But I want to make sure that's not going to make the shared screen too small for the viewer.
I think we might be public broadcasting at the moment, just so you know, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll just share something super benign. Let's see.
Excellent choice on the red, by the way.
Thank you. I noticed yours as well, and I thought, well, we got the memo. Okay, how's that?
Okay, so the only thing that I see is your msn.com.
Okay. And is it like big enough?
It's big enough.
Okay.
It's fine if you want to try something else, but no, that's fine. It's basically full sized, and it's going to vary a little bit by device, but I think you're just fine.
Okay, because I did a run through with somebody and they were complaining that it was too small, but I think it might have just been their device.
Yeah, no, for me, this is as big as the PowerPoints we just did were, so.
Okay, perfect.
I think you're good.
Great. Stop sharing. Okay.
All right.
Well, I am gonna finish taking a break. You should take a break.
Yes, I think I am gonna go do that. And get some water, maybe, and maybe a piece of chocolate. So I'll see you shortly. Good luck with your part of it.
Get it, girl.
Hey, so I just learned a tip about this Q&A business. If you would, you can probably hear me if I, yep. I'm gonna walk away. Oh, okay. Why is that? Yeah, hold on a second. Hey, Catherine, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. Well, as usual, you guys will be pleased to know, as you people in Zoom world, that as is a typical conference, people are late getting back to the room after the break.
Not surprised, not surprised.
Yeah, it's not surprising. So let me just check the, okay, so we have 24 participants still in our Zoom chat room. And I'm going to, can I get rid of this box here? No. Cancel. I was just trying to get rid of this chat right here, but I don't know how to do that.
Right,
Left?
there should be, you should just be able to close it.
How about this thing? Close. Ah, there, I did it.
Got it? All right.
All right. This is a learn as you go. This is a very hands-on experience. So I'm going to get started, and I'm so excited. I think this is a terrific panel. I think we've learned a lot already, you know, from the couple of hours hour and a half or whatever it's been since we've been on together. And I think that the second half of this presentation is going to be really good too. We're going to be spending some time looking at some actual online technology tools, and hopefully our panelists will guide us through how these things work and show us some tips and tricks. The other thing is I'm very hopeful that I personally think this is a big success, so hopefully the other participants do as well. And so I'm hopeful that we can make this an annual event because, as we know, everybody needs technology credits and everybody needs ethics credits, right? And this is a terrific way to get them. So I'm going to tell you how you do that. First of all, we're getting 5 hours of ethics credits for us lawyers and 5 hours of technology credits. So that puts you, you're good for your whole reporting cycle if you attend this class. So I think that's terrific. The most important thing that you need to know about getting your credits is that you have to be signed up in SCED, however they say that, the app that they've been using to get us all scheduled for these classes for this environmental permitting seminar. So you must be signed up in SCED or you won't get the email about how to do it. So the folks here at the Permitting Summer School are going to send us all, everybody who's registered in SCED is going to get an email with the course number, and then you just go into the Florida Bar and submit that. I will read it to you if you like, but you will also get an email. So the course number for this afternoon class is 2003838N as in Nancy. So that that's the course number, but it's important that you have yourself in SCED so you get all the pertinent information that you're going to need. Okay, I'm going to introduce myself now since I've been talking to you all afternoon and I didn't get to do that. But my name is Carlin Kowalski, and I'm a partner with the law firm of Nason Yeager. We're located in Palm Beach County. I've been there for about a year. Before that, I was with the South Florida Water Management District. I was the Deputy General Counsel there. Our firm represents both public sector and private sector clients. So we do a little government work as well as private clients. I also have a background in water and wastewater utilities. I was general counsel for an investor-owned utility called Florida Water Services for about 11 years, and so that's part of my background. Now, when I got our two panelists for the afternoon together and asked them to send me their bios, there's an interesting theme running. Everyone told me on the personal side about their four-legged friends. So I'm going to tell you about mine. I have a golden retriever, and her name is Chelsea. Her name is Lola. My first one was Chelsea. But anyway, Lola is a lot of fun, and it's great since we're all Zooming. You get to spend a lot more time with your pets, and so that's kind of fun. We'll just hope we don't have any barking dogs or cats walking across the screen and that kind of thing as we go forward. So our first panelist is Julia Lamonaco, and Julia joined the South Florida Water Management District in 2016, where she currently supports the district mission to safeguard and restore South Florida's water resources and ecosystems. Julia is a managing attorney for the Everglades and Environmental Law section of the Office of Counsel. Before joining the district, Julia served as counsel to the Florida DEP in Tallahassee, and she litigated a variety of statewide environmental, water resource, and title dispute cases. Julia began her career as counsel to the Florida Public Service Commission, handling electric and water wastewater utility rates, Florida utility storm hardening, and fuel cost recovery. Julia currently serves as an appointee to the Palm Beach County Groundwater and Natural Resources Protection Board, presiding over enforcement hearings. Julia was originally born in North Palm Beach, and she's a true South Floridian. She graduated from Stetson College of Law in 2012 and University of South Florida in 2009, where she focused her studies on industrial organizational psychology and American Sign Language. She loves to travel and go hiking with her husband and her 2 dachshunds, which are adorable. So with that, Julia, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you for that glowing introduction, Carlin. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Julia Lamonico. I'm with the South Florida Water Management District. Today, I am going to give you an overview of 2 of the district's main informational databases. That's e-permitting, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, and a newer function, which is called Quick Maps, which I imagine probably not as familiar with. So we're going to start with e-permitting, and I'd like to see participants on Zoom, if you could show me by raising your hand, how many of you are pretty familiar with e-permitting. And Carlin, if you could let me know if anyone in the room is raising their hand that they're pretty familiar with e-permitting.
Yeah, I think most people have some familiarity, at least here.
Okay, I'm seeing about, I would say maybe a third of the participants online that are pretty familiar, so that's good. I'll be talking to some folks that won't already know what I'm saying, and then others, hopefully you'll learn something new. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you here. Okay, can everyone see that? I'm going to hope yes.
Just see Google.
Okay, perfect. So I'm starting at Google because the best way to get to e-permitting is at the district's website, and that's going to be sfwmd.gov. So there's actually 2 different ways you can do this. You can do sfwmd.gov/e-permitting, if you can remember that. If you can't remember that, then you go to Doing Business with Us, you go to Permits, and you go down here to e-permitting. So that'll take you to the e-permitting homepage. Quick overview, you've got your important notices here, news and notes, help is available, and then oddly the welcome is all the way at the bottom. I'm not sure if that was intentional. Just a quick note on the help is available section. You can see there's a link for some e-permitting help videos. Those are super helpful if you forget anything that you learn here today. There's also some regulatory guidance documents and some information about how to properly name your attachments. E-permitting allows you to submit your application documents for permits, and we prefer certain naming conventions and file sizes, so that'll give you that information. And then there is a list here of webinars, webinar dates. Hopefully that's still sharing. Is that being shared? Can you see the list of webinar dates, Carlin?
I do not. Although I know there was one this morning that I really wanted to attend, but I was on my way here.
Yeah, so that was kind of my point. So let me see if I can.
Oh, I have a question in the room. Hold on. She's in South Florida.
Yeah, this is for the South Florida Water Management District. I know that there are the other water management districts have their own systems, database systems, but this one is just specific to South Florida. So I think you should be able to see this now. This is a schedule for the year. We do give one-on-one or group sessions for learning e-permitting. These are the dates and the times. There was one this morning It was at 10:30 in the morning, and you all missed it. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me instead. But that's just to let you know that that's there. So the next one's October 14th. If you feel like there's somebody in your office that you think could benefit from a training on e-permitting, that would be a great thing for them to attend, and the information on how to attend that is at the bottom. Okay, so back to e-permitting. Like I said, e-permitting is where you can submit your application documents, but it is also a record search database. That's where we're going to focus our discussion today. As you can see, you can create an account. You don't need to create an account unless you're planning on submitting application documents. So anybody can search e-permitting without creating an account. So you don't have to log in. You just go over here to application/permit, and that'll bring you to the record search main page. As you can see, there's a number of criteria that can be used. And my tip to you is to keep your, unless you know exactly what application you're looking for and you have an application number and you know all of the information exactly the way it is, keep your search as broad as you can. Otherwise you could end up yielding no results. So issuing agency, you can search other agencies, permit type, the status, application number, permit number, and then if you just have the project name or the company name or the last name of a consultant, you can use that also. So when you're searching any of the project name, company name, or last name, the best thing to do is to use a percentage sign. That's our wild card. That'll allow you to misspell something or only know a word or two that are in the project name or company name, and it'll still yield you results, and you can search through those results. So we're going to do an example here. Okay, so I know that there's a permit out there for the Brightline train. And I know that it has something to do with being all aboard, but I don't recall the exact name. So I'm just going to type in the percentage sign and all aboard. And I'm going to see what comes up for me.
Julia, I have a request. Is there any way you can make your font bigger on your screen?
I'm not sure.
Just
Does it look really small?
from your internet browser. Usually those of us with old eyes kind of need a little help. Usually I push Control+ and that does it. Oh, there you go. That's helpful. Oh.
Better?
Well, that should do it for us.
Okay. Maybe I'll make it a little smaller so it all fits.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could see the page.
Okay. Maybe 125. How's that?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you so much.
Great, no problem. Okay, so we typed in the percentage sign and all aboard, and I've got 3 pages out of 45 pages right here. So each of these is a page or an application. Obviously you can click next, last page, first page. But this is bringing me up this first application here. This is for the All Aboard Florida East-West Railway. Oh, that's the one I was looking for. But you can see that it's going to bring up any permit application that has the term all aboard in the project name, because that's what I searched for. Now here you can see that there is abbreviation for Florida. That is not typical. It is best when you're searching anything with a name that you do not do any sort of abbreviating, because that could lower your chances of getting results. So make sure you're typing out the word Florida instead of FL. So we're going to go back. Now, if you have the application number, you're going to have the same setup pop up. You know your application number, you just put it in right here. Make sure you do your dash with the last number, and just a tip, your application number is going to be the date that the application was submitted. So here you have 15/09/22. That means that this application was submitted on September 22nd, 2015. And then the -3 is just a chronological indicator. So unless you have a really good memory or use that application number all the time, you might not remember that. And unfortunately, you do need that number, because if you don't put it in, you're not going to yield any results. So make sure you're putting in the full application number, search records, and there's your application. So you've got your main page here. This is going to give you kind of the basic information about the application that you're looking at. It's going to give you the application number, the permit number, your final action date, project name, the applicant, the agent, so on and so forth. So if you want to view this application file, you're going to click on the link to the application number. That's going to bring you to the same information, but then down below, you've got a whole stretch of actual document files that you can flip through. And if you're looking for a specific document, the files are named, pretty much all of the applications have the same type of file. So you've got your applications, your calculations, your compliance, notification, permit, and staff report. Now these will vary a little bit depending on the type of application and how similar the applications are. Another tip is, just because you think your application or your document that you're looking for should be in the compliance folder, doesn't necessarily mean that it is. There is human error. There are humans that are putting these files in here, and so sometimes the document will end up in a folder that it doesn't necessarily belong. So just because you don't find your file in compliance, go ahead and click through some of the other folders and see if the document you're looking for shows up there. So as you can see, each of these will drop down and you have more files inside. And you can click on the file, open it up. Now, unfortunately, with Zoom, it looks like if you open a new file, it doesn't share that particular file unless you switch the sharing. So just give me 1 second to do that. Okay, so you should be seeing the document that I opened up now. You've got a staff report here. And from here, you can print, save, draw on, depending on what PDF version you have, Nuance or Adobe or whatever it is that you use. And you can use the document from that point. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far on what we've done with e-permitting?
I see one chat.
Okay. Yeah, how do I get to the chat from here? Sorry guys, with the district we don't use Zoom, so I'm still getting familiar with it.
It looks like that was a remnant from the last session.
Okay. Okay, so no questions, we'll keep going. Okay, so a really cool function for e-permitting, once you've found the application that you're looking for, and I'm going to use the same application number that I've been using, and you click search records, you can also view this application on a map. So So you go to the bottom, you click view and map, and it's going to bring you here. It's going to zoom in to the actual project featured in the application. And as you can see here at the top, there's an orange line at the top of this box. That represents the fact that this orange line is the project footprint. So as you can see, this is a linear project. This is a railway project running from West Palm Beach all the way up into St. Lucie County. And you can zoom in. And so this is kind of a preview to the Quick Maps function. Quick Maps is very similar, but Quick Maps is a lot more functional than this e-permitting version of Quick Maps. E-permitting, you've just got these 3 little widgets down here where you've got your layer list. And let's say you want to see the conservation easements that are near the application you're looking at. You click on that layer and you zoom in, you can see these little green areas here. These are all the conservation easements showing up in that area. And that's a good way to look at the things that are surrounding the project you're interested in, whether it's your project or someone else's. And there's a lot of layers for you to play with. You can look at other applications. And there you go, there's all the other ERP applications surrounding your project. And you can zoom out and it's actually going to show you all the ERP applications on the map in the area where you zoomed. Now, how far that I've zoomed out here, it's going to take a really long time to draw out all the ERP permit applications on this map. So unless you have a super speedy internet connection, it's best to zoom in onto the area that you're actually interested in. Some of the other layers, you've got right-of-way permits, administrative boundaries. That's going to show you the different water management district boundaries, SFWMD, areas and facilities, structures and canals. So that's just some of the layers you can play with to look at your application and your project and where it falls on the map and what happens around it. Now the Quick Maps function is going to give you that and a ton more. So we're going to go over that next. Any questions about the e-permitting maps function? If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and hopefully I can figure out how to see it. There we go. There's also a Q&A box. If you didn't use the Q&A box before, that makes it really easy for us to field your questions. Okay, hearing none. We're going to click out of this maps. Again, that was down at the bottom of the main page for the application you searched, view and map. Okay. So that's about it on e-permitting. It's a pretty intuitive program. It's pretty easy. There's not a whole lot to it, especially if you have the information that you need to find what you're looking for. And if you don't, just remember to use that percentage sign and it will yield you results and you can search through the different results to try to find exactly what it is that you're looking for. So next we're going to move on to the Quick Maps. This is my absolute favorite application that we have at the Water Management District. I think it's extremely useful and I think you all will find it extremely useful also. And I'm going to ask for another show of hands for anyone who is already familiar with Quick Maps. I'm not seeing any hands. Carlin, is there anyone in the room that is raising their hand?
Guys, anybody here? No, it looks like new Quick Map users. So
Awesome. All right.
the fun thing about these programs is that, you know, once you get on a map program, you can just go for hours looking at interesting things on the map.
Yes, and it's very tempting, but I won't do that to all of you. Because I could get lost in Quick Maps for hours and hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get to Quick Maps, you're going to go to maps.sfwmd.gov. So as you can see, it looks very similar to the one that was connected to e-permitting. They're both ArcGIS. So Quick Maps, you're going to be met with a splash screen upon your first arrival into the application. This is kind of going to give you the lay of the land a little bit. You can click do not show this splash screen again. I never click that because I always like to be reminded, although you can hover over the different widgets to see what they're supposed to do, but this is just.
Okay. Sorry, I have a question. Just Julia, can you recite the website name again or how to get to it?
Yes, and just so everyone knows, I am going to be sending out to everyone that's registered for this webinar or in person. You're going to get an email. It'll have a guide for both e-permitting and for Quick Maps. So you'll have all that information, but I'm happy to repeat it. It's maps.sfwmd.gov.
Yeah, I think they want to just follow along right now, live, real time.
Yeah. It's the best way to do it. So I'll give everybody a chance to get there. Okay, so we're going to go to the main page here. We've got our widgets. And I'm going to make this bigger on my screen. Okay, so we've got widgets down here. If you hover over them, they tell you what they are. And you can click this arrow over here and you find more widgets. And then back again on this arrow. Up here, you can zoom in and out of the map through the plus and minus sign at the top. However, you can also, if you have one of them mouses that has the little scrolly thing in the middle, I don't know what that's called, but you can scroll in and out very easily with your mouse. And you can also move the map all around by dragging it, clicking and dragging. If you click the home button, it's going to zoom you into the default image. And then this will give you your location. You have to allow the website to access your location. I'm not going to do that, but that's those widgets there. Okay, so we're going to start with the legend. So this box is going to be helpful as you click around and use the different functions. This will change based on what function or layer you're using. Right now, what's on your screen is the boundaries for the different water management districts, and so that's what is showing up here on the legend. But like I said, as you click around, that's going to change for you. So you may want to keep that up so that you can keep track of it, or you can X out of it and refer back to it later. Then you have your list of layers. The layers are dependent on how zoomed in or out of the map that you are. The more zoomed out on the map, the more or the harder the layer function is going to have to work, and the longer it's going to take, because it's going to have to pull all the data and information and draw out all of the different items for that layer. So it really works best if you have a particular area that you want to look at. So I'm going to zoom in just into South Florida, my neck of the woods here. Now let's say I am very interested in the consumptive use permits in the Delray Beach area. I'm going to go over here to this layer. I'm going to click consumptive use permits, and it's going to load up all of the consumptive use permits in that area. And so you can zoom in, you can click on the one you're interested in, and you'll have a little box there. It's going to give you the application number, the permit number, and the name of that project. So here we've got the Delray Beach Golf Club's water use permit, and you've got your permit number and your application number. So now, if you're interested in looking at that entire application file or permit file, it's got a link that takes you right back to e-permitting. You click that link and it's going to take you to the page that we just went over that gives you the entire permit file with all the drop-down files and all the documents. You can also look at different boundaries. So we've got all of our CERT boundaries are loaded here. And again, if you pull up your legend, it'll show you what you're looking at. Your SERP Accelerate projects are in yellow. You've got one here, down here. You've got SERP projects and SERP study areas. And then the brown boxes have different regions for SERP. Each of these layers is collapsible and has more sub-layers to it. So that's something that you can kind of play around with and see how deep into the layers you want to go. So that's generally how the layers work. Are there any questions on the layers, or did somebody see a layer that they'd like to check out? I know everybody might be following along on their own computer, so if you are, I do encourage you to click around and kind of see all the different functions.
How about showing us the canals? That's pretty amazing.
So with the canals, streams, and lakes, you can see kind of the lag time there. It took a minute for that to load. And like I said, the further you go out, the longer that's going to take. So here's all of our canals, streams, and lakes, plus the CERT projects are also loaded. I'm going to go down and undo the CERT boundary. So now we can just see the different canals.
So that's essentially the flood control system.
Yes, this is the South Florida Water Management District's flood control system. If you want to go back to the legend, you can see that there's estuaries, lagoons, lakes, and marshes that are differentiated in all of these different colors. You go up to the top right of the box, you can turn all of the layers on. That's going to be a very, very busy picture, so I don't recommend doing that. You can turn all of the layers off. You can expand everything or collapse everything. Okay, so there's our layers. So then if you go to the district data search widget, this is going to be your basically your map e-permitting, but there's a lot more to it. So you're going to look for application numbers here, just like we did in e-permitting. You've got to put the application number with the dash and the number at the end. That'll pull up your application.
Julia, when you have a second, we have a question to bring up the information on the C43 Canal and Reservoir project.
Sure. Okay. 43. So you're going to go over to by value. You're going to go to search layer, and you're going to go to CERT because the C43 is a CERT project. You're going to type in C-43, and it's going to bring up the two projects that have C43 in them. So I'm guessing that they're looking for the Caloosahatchee River West Basin Storage Reservoir. So we're going to click that, hit search, and it's going to bring you right to that footprint. And then it's also going to provide you with all the basic information of your result. And so this is a good spot to check out some of the other functions within the data search. So if you want to search spatially,
I love those little blobs.
Yes. So if you want to be, this is the within buffer. So these different buffers have different meanings. You've got entirely contained within. You've got intersected by the envelope of, and then the default, which is just to apply a buffer. So we're going to apply. So this is the within. I think this is the within. Let's see. Sorry about that. So this has 6 different features selected completely within the project, and you can click each one. And it'll bring you directly to it with the information. Oops, sorry, getting a little crazy with my zooming tool here. Okay, so again, you can search within the footprint of the what you're looking for. So this is basically all the CERT projects that are within the project that you've already searched for. I hope that makes sense to everyone. So you've searched for the C43, and here, the storage reservoir, you've gone there. Now you're going to search spatially and for everything that has to do with that. So if you want to search, let's see, county. Apply that buffer, no results.
So rather than 5 feet, maybe we could put in 5 miles or 1 mile or something like that.
Let's do.
That's particularly useful if you are, for example, looking at a permit and you want to know what's around that area. You could put in a buffer of, 1,000 feet, a mile, or whatever you want to do, and it'll tell you can just look at everything that might affect your project or the one that you're interested in.
So this is the 25-mile buffer. Search with facilities. So then. I have it pretty zoomed out, and my internet connection is not good enough for this, unfortunately.
So that's an important point, I think. Julia mentioned it earlier, that, if you're zoomed way out, there's a ton of information that this program is trying to get to for you. So you probably have more success if you're zoomed in a bit more, because that way it won't be looking for the, half the state or something. It's going to be looking in a smaller area.
Exactly. Carlin, let me know, is it sharing the map screen again?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So back to searching the database. So we're going to zoom in. I'm going to go, so up here you've got addresses and places search bar. You can type in an address and go, wherever you want to go. So I'm going to go to district headquarters.
A nice neutral location.
So here's our headquarters.
That is someone's house.
Mm-hmm. So again, we have the same search layers here. We're going to go to structures. This is not, okay. No, this is not doing what I need it to do. It's very functional, and I apologize. It's just that my internet is terrible.
Nice view of the airport. You can see some airplanes over there, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd love to be able to show you how this works, but that's not able to do that right now. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to print. So this is a pretty cool function. Let's say you need a map and you don't really want to do a public records request. You just want to pop on here and make yourself a map. You can do that. So you have a particular area you want a map of. Zoom into that area. You want to choose your layout. I'm going to go with portrait. You're going to choose what type of file you want your map to be in. I'm going to choose PDF. And then you always want to go to advanced, and you want to go down here to DPI. And you want to change that to 300 because the default DPI is very low, and you will get a very grainy image if you keep it there. Okay. Then you want to hit print. It's created a PDF over here, so you click on it. And this is what comes up. You've got yourself your own map with the exact image that you've brought up on the screen. It's going to give you a legend, and it's going to give you the official SFWMD insignia and information at the bottom. So that to be extremely useful when used in conjunction with the other functions on the map. For instance, we're going to go to draw. So I'm going to go back to the district. Now, let's say you want to make an aerial map of district headquarters and you want to point out exactly where district headquarters is. You can go over here and click a point and create a little pin. You can pick any of these that you want. I'm going to pick this one, drop it right there. You can draw shapes, pick your color, like a line there to show that there's a canal. I want a circular polygon here. And I want to add some text. To go to text, I want to say district HQ. Pick your font color. Let's go with a nice chartreuse. Font size, make it extra big so everybody can see it. Oh, it's a little too big. And then you can put it on the map. So if you right click any of the features that you've put on the map, you can click to move it. Or you can edit it or rotate it or delete it. But let's say I created a really functional photo here that you're gonna be able to use to show a client or what have you. You're gonna go back to this print. Make sure your DPI is correct. Now you have this shiny new map with your drawing and your text on it, showcasing whatever it is on the map that you're trying to showcase.
Very nice. Are you able to do the distance, measuring distance? Do you know how to do that?
Yes.
That's a good function to demonstrate.
Okay, do I have any questions on the drawing or printing function before I move on?
This is like most programs. You just got to get in there and use it and, you know, play with it. And it looks pretty intuitive. It is relatively new, right, Julia?
It is. It's very new. I'm still getting used to it. I think a lot of people don't even know it exists. So it's a very new thing, and I really do encourage everyone to just go in and play with it because, you know, I've had tutorials. I've had 2 different tutorials on it, and I still find that when I go in and just use it is where I kind of retain the information a little more than just watching somebody else click around on it. So I definitely encourage everyone to do that. Okay. So Carlin wants to measure. So we're going to go to the measurement widget. We're going to go back to the district headquarters. And we're going to find out just how many feet it is that I walk back and forth across this building every day when we're not in the zombie apocalypse. So you're going to click the ruler. You're going to click your measurement. Oh, I'm losing the word for this. That you want to use. Click the corner you want to start. You don't have to hold it down. You just click it the one time, and then move your mouse to where you want it to end and click it again. So if you wanted to stop measuring, you need to double click at the end. So you're going to click, move your mouse, double click to end the measurement. So the district headquarters B1 building is 483 feet, and I park usually over here, and I walk all the way to the other end to my office. In here. Okay. So there's also, you can do acres or square miles. So that's really helpful if you want to measure, let's say, like a wetland. So, you know, the district has its little wetland marsh where we house Freddie the alligator when he wants to be there. And you can kind of create a polygon, and you just keep clicking wherever you want the corners to be on your polygon. And then when you're done, you do the double click. And so that marsh is approximately 1.87 acres. Of course, you have to give some room for error. This is only going to be so accurate. Based
Good
on
enough for a lawyer, right?
what was that, Carlin?
Is it good enough for a lawyer? All the scientists and engineers in here
There you go.
would
Probably
not
not
be
even crazy
satisfied.
for me. Okay. And then this is pretty cool. So for all of you wetland scientists out there, if you want to tell one of your fellow scientists where to meet you out in the middle of the Everglades, you come over here to measurement, you click on the location, degrees, just drop a pin and it'll give you the longitude and latitude
Awesome.
the pin that you've dropped. And you can drop it over and over wherever you want to go. You can't drop multiples, you just drop one at a time. But every time you drop one, it'll give you the latitude and longitude location for that pin. That's a pretty useful tool.
Very much.
Okay, any questions on measurements? I want to give everyone a chance.
I think everybody's playing with the tool. That's what I think's happening right
That's what
now.
I like to hear. That's really the best way to. You can just completely ignore me if you want and just keep playing,
Right.
with me.
And just to let you know, I'm seeing a lot of good positive reaction in the room here. Everybody's pretty pleased with the functionality of this thing. It's incredibly useful.
It is.
Amazing to me because this tool used to only be available internal to the district, and they've just recently made it available to externally, and so it's a terrific tool. I'm sure we'll all be seeing lots of reports and things that are created using this tool.
Yeah, I could see myself being really annoyed when I'm up against somebody in litigation and they pop out with a SFW&T map.
That says.
I might have to talk to IT about that. Okay, so let's see, we've got a couple more things here. So this base map gallery widget, this is pretty cool. You can change the background that you're viewing. If you don't want it to be such a realistic background and you have something else you want to showcase, you can pick any of these options for what your map is going to look like. So we've got National Geographic style map. Oh, looks like I still have this pin here. I'm going to delete that. And so this is going to give you more of a, this reminds me of what I used to see in school. So the different base maps are just going to highlight different items, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that type of a change in background and the different ways you can use that to better showcase what it is you're trying to showcase.
Benjamin, are you with us? I see you're.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Zen is enthralled, I'm sure. Okay, so finally we've got this add data widget. Now this is pretty cool. So ArcGIS pulls data from all over the world. So this map function is created from data not just that the district has, but the counties, the municipalities, the country. It comes from everywhere. And so there's more data out there that this map can use, but just doesn't have by default, and you can add that and create a layer using the type of data that you want. So let's say you really want to look at, I'm going to change this face background back. So I think the default is called imagery hybrid. So let's say you're interested in weather. So like I said, it pulls from all over the world. So make sure you include the word Florida when you're searching. So I'm going to click on this Florida weather. I'm going to click add. And now it's going to pull, it's going to create a whole new layer for me using the data within this Florida weather data system.
We just need to save some time for Ben. Cool background.
I hear you.
Hey, thanks.
Like I said, all kinds of data, all kinds of layers that you can use and create your own data for things that we don't have in there for default. So that is quick maps in a nutshell. There is one more function, it's called image selector. That is actually not currently working. I did a test run through this morning with IT. They're not sure what's going on, but it's years of, oh no, I'm sorry, that's not the one that's not working. The attribute table is not working. Image selector is working, and that one's actually really cool. Do I have time to go through that, Carlin? How much time do I have?
Well, thank you, Julia. That was awesome. That was really fun. I'm sure everybody's going to spend some time with this tool and find their own fun things to do with it. So, good job. Okay, we're going to move along, and I'm going to introduce Benjamin. Ben was appointed director of the Division of Water Resource Management in November 2019 to continue the mission of safeguarding Florida's water resources through proactive partnering with local stakeholders, other regulatory agencies and communities, and providing a more consistent and effective regulatory process. The division is committed to working to achieve more now for Florida's environment. To that end, the division's ultimate goal is to enhance both the quality and available quantity of water needed by the state's residents, tourists, and industries, while also providing protection of the state's wetlands, beaches, ground and surface waters today and for generations to come. Before joining the division as a program administrator in compliance and enforcement, Ben served the DEP Office of General Counsel in the litigation section and in a variety of roles as program attorney for Waste, Air, Recreation, and Parks, and the Siting Coordination Office. So he knows a lot about all the areas at DEP. He earned a bachelor's degrees from Millersville University of Pennsylvania in speech communications and a Juris Doctorate with a certification in environmental law from Florida State University's College of Law. Originally from rural Mount Gretna, Pennsylvania, Ben migrated to Tallahassee over 10 years ago and now calls it home with his wife, Rachel, 2 daughters, Bria and Finley, and several four-legged companions. And Ben, you can tell us about your four-legged companions.
Sure. I just want to make sure first you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
And I've got my my good headgear on to make sure that I cut down on some of the background noise of those four-legged companions running around with my two-legged animals is a right way to describe it. And Carlin, you said that this panel, it goes till 7 o'clock tonight, right?
Oh,
So
right.
We're good? Okay. Okay, good. I'll dive into everything then. Yes, actually, the reason that I'm using these and the reason that I have a background with myself in it is because once upon a time I was knocked out of my chair by my biggest four-legged companion, who's a 90-pound red-bone coonhound, and I've now made preparations. So if that happens, I can still talk to you guys from the floor, and you'll still get a beautiful image of me in water. So hopefully that all works out. So originally I didn't recognize that I would have to go last after Julia and Catherine and Joe and Tim, and that was definitely a mistake because I'm not nearly as entertaining or smart as any of them. So if you guys will bear with me, I will leave my dad jokes in my database and I will just get down to work. So as Carlin said, oh, I'm breaking my camera already. As Carlin said, I'm Ben Melnick. I'm with the Department of Environmental Protection. And I have got a few resources that I am going to walk through for the sake of covering things so that we can all learn. I'm going to do more of a high-level view of some of these resources. And just to let everybody know, I've queued some things up here. Momentarily, you should be getting my screen share starting from Google, just like Julia. I have gone and loaded 6 tabs because I'm going to go through 6 different resources in the time we have. And hopefully this will give you guys some new tools that you can use when accessing things with the department or related to the environment. So first off, I'm going to start with our document management system, Oculus, but I will work into our business portal for self-service applications, our public information portal, and lastly, a couple of GIS maps and map layers that are available to the public. So if you start yourself on Google, the simplest way to get where we need to go for all of these is I'm going to give you a Google search, so you don't have to find it on our website, though I welcome you to peruse our DEP website. But if you put in FDEP Oculus, and let me know if you need font changes or zoom in or anything on these things. So your top result is login Oculus, or at least it's my top result, probably because I have used it before. I know many people are familiar with Oculus, but I wanted to start here because it is our document management system, which means that we use it as a database. It's a receptacle of all of our documents, public records or otherwise. We do have confidential documents in Oculus that are not accessible to the public. Well, like I said, we use Oculus as our database for our document management system, and because it is database first and functional interface second, up here at the very top, there is a link to the Enterprise Information Portal, which I will get to in a couple minutes, which many people, if they are perusing for documents, many people find the information portal more easily used than Oculus. But before we go ahead and jump into the public Oculus, I just wanted to scroll down here and just make sure that folks were aware that while there's some good information here, down here at the bottom, there's the help using Oculus area. And we've got an online help link, as well as the public document taxonomy link. And what that is linking to, I've already pulled up. It's a download. It's an Excel share, so that should be popping up in a moment. I switched over to that. That is a useful tool if you are unsure that what you are looking for, where to find it in the different categories and document types and things. It can help you narrow down your searches, or show you which fields you might need to populate. This it gets periodic updates where we make sure that our taxonomy doesn't stray too far from different program areas and different groups, and so it does get updated. There is currently a group that is working on this literally this week to update this document. But so you'll see that there are some where there are some document types that are found through a lot of the program areas, and there are some that aren't found through many. So it can help you narrow down your search. So I just wanted to flag that. That is found at the link. I've switched back to the Oculus internet share. That is found at the public document taxonomy here. It'll prompt you to open, save, download, etc., depending on your browser preferences. So diving into Oculus, we'll go into the public Oculus login. And I just, again, I want to go through this briefly, kind of high level. So we've got various search fields. We've got catalog over here, which is essentially like the program areas that you might be searching for a document from: air, beaches, ERP, mining and minerals, so on and so forth. And most of the document catalogs, they have various profiles, which down here. And I am attempting to use the mouse to highlight things. So if it's difficult to see, let me know, and I can give better clarity on, better descriptions on where it is. So in your profiles, there are some documents are nestled into different profiles. They might be administrative, construction operation management, discovery compliance, enforcement legal, and it goes on with some permitting, plan, sampling. So just for example's sake, I've left it on the catalog of ERP. You can choose to search by profile or property. If you switch to property, what happens is you get a very limited search window that is based on this now, this box. So if you go application number, contractor ID, as you switch through this is also changing. So we're going to go back to profile, which gives us multiple options that we can input. You'll recognize many of these were the options that switched into the property window. So in this drop-down menu, if it's set at equal to, then whatever you type into this field, it is going to match exactly. And as Julia said, there is human error at play that could affect some of our data entry and our document storage. There's also times where, depending on what you're using, it might be based off of things like someone's name, which may not be spelled the same way that we always expect it to be. And so it's good. Yeah, county typically matches as it is a drop-down menu, but these options give you the ability to make it somewhat equal to, including that field, excluding that field, or including part of that. And so the asterisk is your most open, and is therefore, as Julia touched on, likely your best starting place. It's usually easier to use a broad search and then narrow from there if you get too many results. So just to demonstrate the search, I'll go to application number, and as Julia recommended, there are some Boolean search terms that will work here. So if you use the percent sign, it fills in. So right now we are being a bit duplicative between the asterisk in this drop-down category and the percent sign. And I'm just checking for application number that contains 1. And we'll go ahead, you could click enter or hit search. And you could limit the date range, you could limit many more fields. You'll see that we've got 324 documents in the catalog, and everything in the profile is administrative. Well, maybe we realized 324 is a lot, and administrative doesn't sound exactly like what we were looking for. You can change your results by page number, results per page number. You can bring it up to a maximum of 55, and then you're going to hit refresh. And from here, you can see more line items, more rows at the same time, and it might give you a better idea of, did your results bring up what you are looking for? We have many columns, and depending on when the data and when the document was entered, more columns should be filled in, completed, the more recent the document is. And so key fields are like the permit number or application number, but sometimes you're just looking for things that might be affecting you. So you might be looking for the receive date, you might be looking to match the county, and you might be looking for the document type. So you can sort by any of these column headers that are link types here. So you could change the receive date to see anything that is more recent. When you do, it does refresh the view to the basic 10. Looks like 2015 was the most recent. We've now sorted the reverse of receive date. So if this, again, as you're looking through this, right, you might realize that this wasn't necessarily what you were, how you wanted to look for it. So you have several options. If you wanted to send the search results, export to Excel, or if you wanted to find within these results, but sometimes we might need to back out, just re-hit search. And if you do that from within your search, you'll see that the same fields you populated are still populated. And that'll give you the ability to say, okay, perhaps we need to add something to it. Maybe it's a district location, or maybe I need to change the profile. I recognize that Oculus is not the world's best document search tool. Believe it or not, EPA seems to like it. That makes me happy. I'm glad they like it. But like I said, I will take you through to another public document search tool. So for now, I'm going to leave Oculus and move on to another online resource. So if there are questions, please let us know with the Q&A function, or let Carlin know. And again, there are, I'm going to move through a couple different resources here, and there is a more user-friendly search that we'll come to here in just a couple of minutes. So for the next resource that I wanted to highlight here, I've gone to a new Google tab, and I've gone ahead and typed in FTEP Business Portal. It's as simple as that. Hit your Google search, and it should be your top result, or it might be near the top, DEP Business Portal Home. It is the Florida DEP portal. And you will get to a site like this. Much like Julia described, there is an ability to sign in if you have an account, register if you do not have an account, and there are certain functions that are available to people who are applicants or permittees with us. And so you'll see tiles for apply, pay, submit, and continue. Continue is simply picking up where you left off on something that you've saved or something that you've submitted to us, and requires a back and forth with DEP. Apply, pay, and submit, I'll get back to you in just a moment. While you can go into them and see what is available to you, in order to follow one of these pathways fully through to its conclusion, you'll need to be registered or signed in. So what we're going to do is we're going to look here at what is available to the public. And so we'll start here with the view. It was the bottom tile, bottom left tile. In view, you've got options of documents, events, maps, and reports. Documents is going to lead us to the a few options here, and your main one here is the electronic document management system, which of course we will come back to, but it opens up a direct link into Oculus. For me, it opens on a new tab. So I've just gone back to the documents options here. As you hover over the different tiles, you should get the balloons that pop up to give you a better description of what it is that you are looking at and what it means. I'm going to use the back button to go back to the view options. Like I said, there was documents, events, maps, and reports. The documents, as you saw, while it leads to some pre-made document lists, it takes you into another one of our. It takes you into Oculus for a document search. Events, and maybe now's a good time to just highlight that a lot of our websites, a lot of our pages are very strongly interlinked. The various program areas and the various tools. We do our best to make sure that there are links that make it easy so that if you are in one area and they are related items, even though we might have them in two different groups in our department, we make sure that they're nice and cozy on the website so it's easy to get to them. I do want to go to events because it's a good public tool. In that events tile, you have Earth Calendar, the Rec and Parks, and the Public Notices Calendar. One of the things that I wanted to, sorry, just sliding this over here. One of the things that I wanted to flag here is that State Parks takes you to the actual State Parks page, and currently that page is down. That page was being updated and with the pandemic and lots of frequent changes. So many parks are posting individual information. I'm sorry, many parks are posting their information on individual sites, and it's been difficult to keep up with the conglomerating that information as many of them have had to respond on the fly to local conditions. So state park information for now is most readily available on each individual park website. The Earth Calendar and the Public Notices Calendar for right now are both going to take you to the same page. So I'm going to click on the Public Notices Calendar, which for me will open a new tab. Like I said, the Earth Calendar and the Public Notices Calendar take you to a historical public notices outreach and education calendar. This is where we've preserved previous calendars and previous outreach and education events. Our current and our new public notices page is linked here at the top. And again, for me, it's going to open a new tab. And that takes you into our DEP events and public notices calendar, which you'll see at the top here, has options to sort by month, week, day, year. Those are viewing options. So if you scroll down, you'll see right now we are on month, and we have a calendar month that is presented below. Week will do the same by presenting to you the information in a week. And year, you will lose daily details, but you will see days marked off having specific instances of events. Now, the view as a list changes how you're interfacing with this. So if you click view as a list, it will show you, again, options of month, week, day. You lose the option for year. And instead of the calendar view, it gives you just a what is upcoming day by day listing of the events without sorting, which is an option here. I'm going to go back to view on calendar. And if you're looking for something specific, you can use these to narrow that down. If you're looking for something more general, Some of these might help if you're looking for any events, say in your county, or if you are looking for something that is a public notice or is not specifically a public notice, but is potentially an event of the departments. We have event types listed, but if you're unsure of that, of course, like I said, you could peruse the calendar or the list itself, or you can simply come over to division and program area. The nice thing about division and program area is if you pick a division, which is what I clicked on the drop down for division, if we go to Division of Water Resource Management, it will automatically refresh your page to modify your program area options to just those program areas that are part of or overlap with Division of Water Resource Management. So if you could leave it at the division entirely, by picking the Division of Water Resource Management General, or you could pick something specific such as the Stormwater Program, apply that and see if you've got any upcoming events. Now I'm in year view, so it's looking back as well as forwards, and it may or may not show specific events that are coming up based on your search criteria. So you can always reset and clean out what you're looking for, or clear out your search, and go back to a month or a day by day, a week by week view to see what is coming up, and see what items, C43, may be on the public calendar. So I'm going to close these well, I can just go back, leaving those tabs to create a mess. Like I said, Earth Calendar leads to the same place. I'm back on my business portal view in the events. I'm going to just use the back button to get back to the view tile. Maps, I'll leave this. I recommend you don't follow me. I'm going to click on it, but I'll use back very shortly. It brings up pre-made maps that I will show you Google searches to get to larger lists of the same pre-made maps. So you don't have to navigate down through many layers to get to one of the specific items that is saved in any of these map areas. So I'm just going to head back. The reports is what you would imagine. There are various reports here, though this is only certain reports that are automatically put together for public consumption. Many of these will link to individual pages throughout the rest of our DEP website. So if you are looking for reports, it might be a good place to help you search for those things. But many of these are simply ones that we create and we post to individual program pages, such as water or the Division of Waste or the Division of Air. And then they are linked and compiled here so that the business portal is as much of a one-stop shop as it can be. So backing up, again, apply, pay, and submit are for if you are permitting or a permittee with the agency. The other public, heavily public used tile here is sign up. If you click here, we've got newsletters. There are a limited number of ongoing newsletters with the department, but they are all listed here. And again, you have bubbles that'll pop up to give you a little bit more detail. I'm going to use back. There are subscriptions and reporting. Both of those take you to more detail where you can specify what it is you're looking for on an ongoing basis. So subscriptions, active waste cleanup locations is going to take you to map abilities to identify what it is that you are looking for those active status in what areas. Submitted permit applications can be large. We get many permits, and this is based on specific details. So you could put in, you create a new subscription based on certain key terms or keywords. And again, for me, that opened a new tab. So I'm going to just jump back to this page. The pollution notices is where we have many many people in the public and many outside entities that use this feature for subscription. Those pollution notices, it gives you the options of selecting as many or all counties in Florida, and all you need to do is put in an email and submit that to get added to that notice for the pollution notice group. Backing up again. Now, rather than dive through the apply, the pay, and the submit, I wanted to point out a feature for you down here at the bottom of and this is the home page of the business portal, right? So this home link follows on every page. You can always navigate back by clicking on that. And if you got here from Google, right, it's right here in the home page. Nice and easy. Down at the bottom is the site map. The site map is essentially an outline of every pathway and link as on homepage, right? Like I said, there's the apply. If you go into apply, you've got the build option, and here are your options. This is one of the most convenient ways to see what may be at your fingertips without necessarily navigating down every pathway and then backing up. So I did want to flag that as a time-saving tool. I know I'm moving fast. I appreciate those who are following, but please let me know if you have questions so that I can touch on things. I don't want to go too fast that this isn't useful for you, though we can share some links after. I'm just closing out some of my tabs. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to shift over to Google. Now that document search that I told you about, if you type into Google FDEP Public Information Portal and hit your Google search, it should, let's see, is not the top. Nope, down here. Okay. The PRO-DENV Prod Enviro Department State DEP Nexus. This electronic document search portal, perhaps I'll have to add in electronic up there, but the electronic document search portal, this here is where we're going to click. And again, if Oculus is easier, right? Do the Google search for FDEP Oculus and then go to the top of the page. There is a link directly to this information portal. This information portal is built with more modern search functionality in mind. This is meant to be used to generally search all of our information, and it will create your list, and you have to sort it ahead of time by your lead functions, unlike Oculus, which was allowing you to sort, manipulate while you're in there. However, you can export your search results into an Excel file and sort it at will there. So for simplicity, for facility name, we'll just go with America, and let's just see what that gives us if we hit submit. It brings up an incredible amount of results, but I wanted to grab this for your attention here. For additional information, there are select hyperlinks under the data links where available. D is providing a list of electronic documents that are associated with the facility. What they mean by the facility is each one of these, that is a line, each one of these rows is a separate facility or entity that is in our various systems. This information portal pulls from all of our databases. F and P currently are DEP internal use categories that you need an FDEP or one of our delegated program logins for. M provides a GIS map that is focused on the facility with the relevant layers activated. And Q is just providing a contact for user questions and quality control if there's something that you need to reach out to us on. So where those are found are over here in the data links category. So if you're scrolling down, you'll see that many of these just have Q because they may be old or incomplete files. If we jump to another page, I did too broad of a search here, folks. Let's Let's go back to search home. Facility name, I'm going to change it to St. Cloud and go ahead and search. Now you'll see only 59 results come up that are related to St. Cloud, that either have that in the somewhere in the facility name, whether it's the lead or later in the facility name. And over here, we've got a number of the optional links here. So if we go to this first one that has the link for documents and click on that, it brings up another list, a row of documents that are, it describes the type, the subject, and what it's applying to, and of course the date. And if you click on one of the red arrows, for me, it's going to give me the option to download, open, save the document. All depends on your browser and your preferences, but if you click on that view, it will then bring you to that document directly from here. Some of the larger documents, it is accessing them out of Oculus, and it might be better to copy some of the information and take it over to Oculus if it's a large document, and depending on your internet speed, that might be easier to download. Just a recently learned fun fact with everyone teleworking. So that I encourage people to work through that information portal. It is much more user-friendly than Oculus, and I just jumped back to my search results page. As you see, it's bringing up every line item from any of our databases, and from whether it's from our permitting database, our compliance database, or our document management system database. And so the ones with the Ds are the ones that are linked to document pages, while the rest may have come from another database. I'm going to keep moving to give you guys a quick look at our various map programs. We've got really three places if you're looking for maps or GIS layers. And so those are, we're going to start here with if you type in FDEP geodata and hit your Google search, we're going to go down. So remember the geodata. So it's this one that starts with geodata.dep. If you click on this page to bring it up, while you could get absolutely lost in this resource, it's important to remember that this page, the geodata page, is where you can go in and pull. I just clicked on atmosphere and climate. You can go in and pull the actual GIS layers that we use for things. You can filter what you're looking for, or you can pull it from those tile tabs that I pulled from the home page. And if you work with GIS, or if your group works with GIS, this can be an invaluable tool to actually pull the data layers that we're working with, so that you can use that data in your own systems or in whichever way you want. If you aren't creating your own systems and or using your own layers in your own GIS tools, we've got two systems you could use. Sorry, got that too high. It did the drop down. We have FDEP ArcGIS, which I'll go to in a moment, and you have FDEP MapDirect. MapDirect is a customized, it's a DEP customized program, whereas the ArcGIS, it's what's in use for many folks. So we've got just a few minutes left, so I'm going to follow these search results so you can see where we need to be. So the Florida DEP ArcGIS, or FDEP for ArcGIS, this is your main search result that you're going to want to click on. Again, ArcGIS in the web address, and this is going to bring you up to a map gallery that has lots of pre-made maps and options. And if you go below the gallery, there are story maps, which are combinations of we'll go with, we're clicking on the first one, the geologic mapping in Florida. A story map, I believe many of you might use or encounter, but it's going to combine the GIS layer with the map of the mapping with some write-up details to link things together so that you or the user is getting a full picture of what's going on. So this map is loading the geologic layer, and over here on your right, you're going to see that there are specific pages that you can just scroll down through, either using the wheel on your mouse or using the arrow at the bottom. And of course, if you scroll low, you can always use the home button to come back to the top, or you can just use your drop arrow to shift down to the next full page. And as you shift through, you'll come across these areas where it triggers a change in the map to jump into a specific location or to give you more detail. In the interest of time, I'm just going to drop back to quick show you the ArcGIS. Remember, we've got lots of story maps that are available here. In ArcGIS, we also have many maps that are pre-made in our map gallery. And then I'm going to go over to Google for the last resource that I wanted to highlight for you guys. If you type in FDEP Map Direct, just like Julia was getting you lost in the district's mapping tool, this top result here, the Map Direct Gallery, this here is probably our favorite tool to get lost in. While of course, again, we have many pre-made maps, and recognize the pre-made maps, some of them were made for specific instances, such as a hurricane event or such as a legislative or statutory item. So there is a time associated with it. But if you click on one of these, or I'm going to scroll back up to the top. So I apologize for the swiftness. There is just the general open Map Direct application. And we'll go there for a moment, show you how you can simple overview. It's going to bring you to a general image of Florida. At the top, you've got Open Map Direct Galleries. This will open a link or open a page right back to where we were with the various pre-made maps. You can minimize it, you can print it, you can share, and of course you can click on the question mark for a list of help. There are many guides for navigating and creating. The important quick link is probably over here. If you feel comfortable without one of your user guides, just go to Add Map Layers. And if you click on the map layer, this is one of the key things I wanted to show you here. There are 4,731 total map layers available. And you can sort that. Right now, it is saying show only items from Florida DEP. So if you click on that, so I'll show that again where that was. Of course, there we go. Show only items. It's this first of the top items to filter or sort. If you click on that, it'll give you the ability to search through what are all of your sources, which include ArcGIS and Esri, but we also have South Florida Water Management District, and we also have various federal maps like US EPA. As you add maps, we're going to pretend we added some maps, and instead I'm just going to switch back and open a pre-made map for convenience, just to show you one quick feature, and then I promise I will stop talking. I wanted to flag this for you. This warning saying you cannot see any map features on this scale. It's giving you direct knowledge of what you need to do. If you have a place you want to be in a county, you can click on it, say Leon, or you could go down here to the show county and just jump to your county of choice to narrow that map down and make sure that you are getting the detail so that it can populate. It's telling you what the map is showing and the layers, each layer that is contributing. This only has 3, but the 2 important things to note, there's a million pieces of information in this, of course, but it's showing you whether the layer is visible and whether labels from the layer are visible. Labels can take some time, but it will label each of these items on the map, which is what my computer is attempting to catch up to. Carlin, if you want to end it there, I understand we are out of time. Of course, just like any functional map, all of these items here come from our databases and can be selected to drop down all of the individual information that is found, and some of them will have links to their document listings that are in the public information portal that I recommend you all use. With that, Carlin, I will stop holding everyone's time, and I can share all kinds of resources.
Thank you, Ben.
Certainly.
These are just amazing resources. It blows my mind that there's just so much information available. I appreciate knowing particularly about the pre-made maps, because that might be a good place for many of us to start and then get our bearings and then maybe think about where else we want to look. So that was really useful to know. I also appreciate learning about the site map because we all know we get lost on websites, especially one as big as DEP's. That's really useful. So, but thank you for giving us that tour. That was great. Appreciate
Certainly.
it. And Julia, thank you to you. Thank you to everybody who participated for staying with us the whole time. I'm very hopeful we can get together again next year and talk about what we've all learned in the year that passes. So thanks so much to all our panelists. Any final words, Catherine?
I was just going to add, because this is a new panel, I think we would all welcome your feedback if you have any. We definitely hope you found it useful, but thank you all for attending even in these strange times and strange formats, and we appreciate it. And like Carlin said, hopefully we'll see you next year, and hopefully it'll be in a slightly different and slightly better way.
That's right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.